I'd like to call the meeting to order at 8:34 on June 8th, 2021. I guess we just turn this over to you, Dr. Moore.
All right, here we go. That was not planned. And there we go. All right, so board members, it is a real treat and honor to kick off today. Over the course of the year, Cabinet has been working along with district staff around our strategic plan. And over the course of that year, we've created a number of new systems, process, procedures, initiatives aligned to our strategic plan. So how are we going to implement our strategic plan? What things do we need to stop doing? What things do we need to start doing? So as we began to talk through these new initiatives, we thought it would be a good idea to unroll them or release them in a very, very powerful way. And we thought of no better way of unveiling the district's 37 new initiatives by beginning the day by also highlighting some of the innovation that's taking place in our classroom. So it was a real joy to see how I cannot do anything with robotics this morning in our lobby with all of the schools that were there. It was something powerful to see our principals, our teachers highlighting some of the cool and innovative things that are bringing education to life in our classrooms. So very, very proud of what we see currently, but even more excited about what we're going to create moving forward as we implement a very bold and courageous strategic plan that doesn't allow us to remain idle in our work, but very, very focused and aggressive in order to ensure we are providing world-class education for every single student here in the school district of Indian River County. So what you'll see today is each cabinet member and selected staff will be presenting their new initiatives through their very specific office. Once again, you'll see each of the 37 initiatives created aligned to our district's strategic plan. So you will see these new initiatives, very systematic, systemic, sustainable, all supporting what we call continuous improvement, both from the district perspective as well as 100% aligned to our school site continuous improvement efforts, which Mr. Meyer will talk about in a little bit. So these are all new initiatives that drive the work. So we're very, very excited to release this information today as we close the door on one school year and very, very excitedly open the door on the upcoming school year. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Meyer, and I'll pass the torch to Mr. Meyer.
All righty, through the chair, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Moore. All right, our first new initiative is rocking the block. And as Dr. Moore said, this is new to us because we are not just doing block schedule this year. We are moving to what we call a 4x4, 8-period day block schedule. Last year, we brought the block schedule to the school district of Indian River County in order to help reduce the spread of COVID, to not change classes so much. And we learned a lot from that. We learned that there were many classes that enabled students to really dig deep into the content. You're not having to set up a lab and break the lab down. You're not having to dress out for PE and then immediately dress back in, right? And just this is going to enable us to dig really deep into the math, into the ELA, and to a level that our students need to be successful. So by rocking the block, by setting up those 4x4 schedules, we're going to be able to give students exactly what they need. You'll hear a lot of times in secondary where their parents, students are frustrated that I have to take an additional reading class, I have to take an additional math class, that's taking me away from one of the electives that I love. I'm not able to do the art, I'm not able to do the CTE class. Well, no longer. By moving to a 4x4, by moving to an 8-period day, there's going to be plenty of time, plenty of periods in the day that it's going to enable our students not just to get what they need academically to ensure that we have higher rates of graduation, that we close achievement gaps, but we're also looking after the whole child and enabling them to participate in the electives that they love to do that are going to push them to a place where they're going to be successful. So very, very, very excited. We're working hard right now with the master schedules with the secondary schools to make sure this becomes a reality. And rocking the block, like I said, is going to what we believe to be a true equity maker, and the fact that with this, everyone's going to get exactly what they need. So you may hear some things right from the block schedule last year. A portion of this is that we do have work to do. We have work to do around making sure that that 90 minutes is as engaging as it should be. We're definitely going to bring some small group instruction into these 90-minute blocks. It's not just the complaints you're getting that I'm sitting there for 90 minutes. I used to be bored for 45 minutes in my math class, and now I'm bored for 90 minutes straight. We're going to break that trend. We're going to break that cycle through a lot of professional development that we're delivering through Reignite and through the rest of the summer to ensure that our teachers are prepared to deliver engaging lessons throughout that block. So each and every block will be rocking, and the system itself will be rocking ourselves to success. The next initiative is our CIS, our Continuous Improvement Systematized. We did a lot of work around our school improvement plans last year. Our administrators, our school-based leadership teams, we learned a lot about our own school improvement process. But one of the things we did learn is that we need our own system. We need our own internal way to modify these. In the past, we've been using the state SIMS system, which is very rigid, right? I mean, the question prompts are set by the state. Once we answer them, once we lock them down, we are not able to go in and change that template. But that work is not stagnant. The work of continuous improvement, the work of school improvement is not a one and done, approve this document and set it to the side. It should be living, it should be breathing. Many times throughout the course of last year, we found ourselves doing the impact reviews and recognizing that we needed an auxiliary plan. What are we doing for math? What are we doing for this grade level? What are we doing for these students? And we had to create other templates to have the principals turn those in. With this system, we're going to be able to immediately create a new template, should we find something, to have all of the teachers log in, or excuse me, the principals log in. They can do teachers if they want to bring them in. I think I would encourage that, to have school-based leadership teams looking at the entire problem. But it's just something that I think is going to be really unique and special to the school district of Indian River County to have our own continuous improvement system that we can manage, that we can modify, that we can be nimble and react to our individual needs and not some one-size-fits-all system from the state. So very, very excited about the continuous development of our school improvement planning process. Of course, we're bringing back Pre-Ignite. That's going to happen tomorrow. That's going to set our principals up to reflect on what they did last year and prepare over the next 4 weeks before we bring everyone back at the mid part of July to start planning for next year. So the whole system continues to evolve. Super duper proud of Ms. Becerra and her team and everyone else that's assisted her, Mr. McDonald, all the principals that were a part of this. Very, very excited about our new SIP plan. All right, the college and career catapult. Last year we got our graduation rates. We're predicting similar levels of success for this upcoming year. We eclipsed 90%, which was very, very special. Knowing that we're getting over 90% of our students to graduate on time is certainly something that is indicative of a highly successful system from K through 12. It didn't just happen in that 12th grade year. It wasn't just the high schools, right? It was the groundwork that was laid by all schools. But that's not enough for us, right? What we're trying to build here is a world-class educational system that isn't just having students get to the finish line of high school graduation. It's preparing them for their future. So the state has what's called college and career acceleration components, where they encourage districts to provide AP classes, IB classes, dual enrollment classes, CTE classes, setting students up for whatever their pathway is going to be after high school. We know that not all of our kids are going to college, and that's absolutely fine. But what we want to assure does occur is that we are not just saying, all right, you got your 12 tickets to ride 12 years of school, you're done now, see you later, right? It's not the fair. We want to set them up for a lifetime of success. So by setting this aspirational goal of the 90% of our students being completers of one of these courses, it really is going to catapult them to future college and career success. 90 by 9. This one's kind of catchy to me. The Learning Alliance, the Moonshot Moment, we've already established that aspirational goal of achieving 90% of our students reading at or above grade level by 3rd grade. Well, we're going to do the same thing for algebra. Algebra is known as a gatekeeper to other advanced courses, and what we really want to see happen here is that 90% of our students have met their algebra graduation component by the 9th grade. So as you can see on the slide, it is a comprehensive redesign of middle grades math instruction. Had some conversations last week where we realized that we may need to bring that down into some earlier grade levels even before 5th grade. There's going to be some great results, I think, that come out from our algebra teachers this year and our algebra program this year. We changed some of our course pathways. Many more students were in algebra in 8th grade. Many more students were in algebra by 9th grade. But just getting that at bat is not going to just give us the 90% success, right? We're going to have to do more coaching. We're going to have to look at our curriculum. We're going to have to look at our comprehensive set of after-school activities, summer activities. This year, but knowing what we were facing with the pandemic, we do have a summer STEM Ventures camp, which is going to help with this, but we're probably going to need to grow those through the next summers in order to make sure we can get to this 90%. So I think by putting this on paper, having this goal, we're really going to dig into what it's going to take, additional support, wraparound services, new curriculum. As we've talked about the standards, not an ELA with the current textbook adoption. Next year, we're going through an instructional materials adoption for math, and the year after that, we will implement the new math standards. So this is timely, this is necessary, this is going to set our students up for high school success, because think of all the courses that you have to have algebra before you move on to take. The importance of all the great things we saw in the lobby earlier this morning, the STEM, that high-level math. We need to get our students to be math proficient. We need them to get this graduation component and complete algebra as early as possible so they can move into those fields. So I believe it's something we can do. Clearly, like I said earlier with the graduation rate, by having a graduation rate that's over 90%, we are definitely getting 90% of our students to meet that algebra component by 12th grade, but backing that down to 9th grade is going to set our high schools up to be world-class educational institutions. All right, the STARS Extended Day program. Kudos to Ms. Emerson for doing a lot of work of looking at our Extended Day program this year. As we briefed the board and the community at our last meeting, we went through a little bit of a reorganization in C&I for the upcoming year. Dr. Long will be our Director of Extended Learning Services, and we're going to continue what we've already started here with the evolution and improvement of our Extended Day. We know that opportunity is there for so many kids, but we need to dig into the data. We need to dig into how effective it is. We need to dig into which students are participating. But not just our Extended Day program that we offer at our schools, but all of the schools, right? If we have an opportunity to offer a specific 4th grade program or a specific 5th grade program, going back to what I just mentioned about math, that's the work that Dr. Long is going to continue to look at throughout this year to make sure that we have something for every student who needs it. And like I said, couldn't be more proud of the improvements we made this year, but we recognize that some of the successes that we're going to glean from this year did come from this, and it's something we need to continue to look at. I'm very excited about what that will look like in the upcoming year. All right, Ms. Flood, the building blocks for success, building learners on course to kindergarten success. Had a great presentation a couple months ago where we talked about the current state of our early learning, all the great things that we're doing, all the great things that we will be doing, and this is just that commitment to further improve. And so, one of the things we recognized through some of the work that came out of the presentation we did before the board back in March was a deep dive into the number of students that we serve in our full-day VPK classes. And what we found is we were maybe right below, the data lags a lot, so it's hard to know, but we weren't certainly a leader in the percent of students that we serve in our full-day VPK classes. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a classroom this year and intentionally add that classroom to Dodgertown. So very excited about increasing access to programming. That's going to take us definitely over the threshold that I'm aware of, and of course if other districts do this, then we'll follow suit. Look for that data from OEL as to how many other districts are adding additional full-day VPK slots. But one of the other things that's important is not just the slots, it's who's in them. And so what we found is that as students come to register for the VPK, we should absolutely be doing a little quick screener. Only takes 10, 15 minutes. Let's see what they know. Let's see if they're already on a path to success. Maybe they're already counting. Maybe they already know all of their letter sounds and letter identification. Maybe they're already kindergarten ready. What we would need to do is make sure we're prioritizing the seats that we have for the students who need it most, right? And so between those adding seats and making sure that if we have students who are not on track to be kindergarten ready, that they are prioritizing getting those seats in our full-day programs, I definitely believe that we're on the course to kindergarten success. So I look forward to reporting on that in the fall after registration is complete and all the courses are underway. All right, Epic Steam. I mean, what a great morning. Lots of excitement. I'm sure we'd all like to stay out there in the lobby and do some more taste testing. Kudos to the team that set that up. That's a tongue twister. But one of the things that came out of some of our climate surveys was the engagement of our lessons, right? The students believe that the teachers have their best interests at heart. The students are reporting that, I think the school wants great things for me, but could you make the classes a little bit more interesting? And I get that, right? I get that. Sometimes you know, we get focused on the standards, we get focused on the outcomes, we get focused on different things. But I think through the integration of different components, I think students will be able to see how it connects together, and they'll enjoy, you know, talking about history when they can see that there's some science and technology that led to the different developments and historical events. And, you know, and just, you know, STEAM gets an interesting reputation. As the former director of Just Read Florida, you notice that reading's not in here, right? It's like, can we have some reading? But STEAM is so critical to success. Integrating that into what we're doing, the Vero Beach High School has a great plan of how they're going to incorporate these subjects together. It's not isolated, right? We need to ensure that it's there together, and I think through that our students will feel much more engaged in their learning process. You know, I get it, the climate survey, we want to be more engaging. We lived through COVID. We're here. You know, next year is not just going to be a return to normal. Next year is going to be the best year that we've ever had for the lessons that we've learned. So epic STEAM. All right, and now I'm going to bring Miss Emerson up to the podium over there to talk about CNI's other two initiatives. You need a clicker there, Miss Emerson? You tell me when you're ready to move.
I'm ready to go.
All right.
On. Testing. All right. So I am really excited about the Education Foundation for Big Ideas. Working hand in hand with Doug Herron, the executive director, and their board, we are joining forces to create initiatives that are aligned directly to our strategic plan, going through the guiding principles of our strategic plan so that we are hitting on what our students need most. Looking at the big ideas, which stand for innovation, development, equity, access, and support, will be working hand in hand to ensure that underneath each of those initiatives is a pillar that has very specific supports for our district and what our student needs are. And so we've been very grateful to have this relationship not only, you know, coexisting, but now strengthening as we move forward. So I want to thank Doug, as he's in the audience today, for working so closely with our district in realigning all of our initiatives. And then the next one is our Choice and Community Extravaganza. Today, you had an opportunity for a little technology taste testing prior to the meeting. That was just a taste test of what's to come on October 9th. We are really strengthening our relationships with our community partners to ensure that, one, we're really supporting our parents in understanding what's available to them, not just within our district through our choice and theme programs, but in other programs that can also support our students through enrichment, remediation, academic support, and even athletic and extracurricular opportunities. On October 9th, we will be inviting the community out to go through all of the different choice options in our district, including our charter schools, and giving them an opportunity to also attend some different parent seminars, while also working directly with Eric Seymour and his team to expand to an entire community area where different programs can sign up and be able to register students for their own programs, really helping our parents have a one-stop shop to understand what's best for them and their family. In addition to that, our choice booklet will now include our community programs. And so this is an expansion that we'll be adding on, ensuring that if parents want to understand what different opportunities there are, whether it's youth sailing or Gifford Youth Achievement Center or orchestra program, it will all be in one location for them, easy access. And just a quick shout out to the PIO team, because we'll be going back to each school and creating new choice videos so that every single school will be able to showcase the excellence taking place on their campus.
Okay, good morning. We're very excited, the Office of Strategic Planning and Support Services, to talk about our initiatives that we have unveiled for next year. Our first one is where our virtual school, where we unlock the possibilities for our students. We're going to offer our higher level STEM courses as well as unique elective courses. And we're going to do this by having our students actually have a survey that go out pertaining to the different courses that they would be interested in, so we can make sure we meet the needs of our students. This also will provide opportunities for flexible scheduling as well as on-demand learning for our students, which is a new way of learning, not the sit and get and brick and mortar. So this will provide an opportunity for our students to have some flexibility in learning. The Bridge to Homeschool Partnerships. This is an important collaboration, thanks to one of our board members, that we have really started working on to really merge the relationships with our parents. Here, we've created online resources for our parents that has already gone out to, we've had postcards go out to our parents with additional information for resources, which they were not getting at the time. So this year, we've created on our website a new website that says homeschool specifically and gives them all the information that they need to partake in some of our resources that we have on our high school and middle school campus. As well as we will be hosting our first district quarterly forum, which will be in July, and we'll host this every quarter to make sure that parents have a voice, that we can talk about what we're doing in our district, what opportunities are available for our homeschool students in our district, as well as to, just have conversation with them so they feel a part of our community. Year at a Glance calendar. We're very excited about this tool that was sent out last week. Organization is critical to the successful implementation of a school year, and we started that out preparing for last year, thanks to all the offices that helped put this together. And it aligns with our strategic plan, where we have our professional development, our meetings, and our events outlined for the year, so everyone can put it on their calendar and be prepared for these events, as well as our non-instructional. Many times we focus on the instructional, but we have opportunities for both instructional and non-instructional to make sure our needs are being met for all of our staff, not just one. Preparing and advising to higher education, which is our PATH program. This is being offered at both high schools with the goal of helping students find their path. And the program will include a path advisor, which we've already started working with the last quarter of the school year. And at each high school, this person will guide students and parents through the college admission process, as well as helping them apply for financial aid, bright futures, scholarships, and more. And we're very excited that we actually have a platform called score.com, which is where our high school students can actually prepare for college and career planning. This platform will be available for our students in the fall, where they can go on and actually research colleges, scholarships, information. They can also do letters of recommendation, requests. It's one platform that houses all of that information. It also has a parent side where our parents can go in and compare college costs. They can also look at information reviews from other students about the colleges as well. We're also excited about Youth Science, which will be a part of our middle school platform. This will be where our students will complete an inventory for career planning that will build that foundation, so when they get ready to go to high school, they'll have that information. They'll have some careers in mind, so they're ready to go with SCORE in the high school years. Multi-tiered system of support is a framework for providing targeted support to our students academically and behaviorally. We just finished up our training yesterday. We had our training June 3rd and 7th for school-based teams. What a wonderful opportunities for them to get together and look at how they can meet the needs of students. With that, we unveiled our new MSS Manual, which provided tools of how they can collaboratively work together and ensure that students are not being placed in interventions for a year without looking at the intervention and without changing the intervention. Is to make sure that our students are getting their needs met within a certain amount of time, that they have tools available to ensure that. We've also streamlined the documentation process so it does not take as long. We should be able to have some data and be able to problem solve between 6 to 8 weeks to make some decisions on behalf of the students. It also outlines the clear roles and responsibilities so those teams know who's supposed to do what, and then we have an action plan where they're submitting that information in early August to make sure that we follow through for implementation practices. Also, my team will be going out to the schools at the beginning of the school year to actually observe and provide coaching to ensure the implementation is being done with fidelity and to provide that support for them. Our AIM program, which is the Alternative Intervention Measures, this is a system-based focus on the whole child. and to promote student success through early identification and individualized intervention. And we're going to be working with Mr. Brown with the ACE. He will be going out to look at the early warning systems. Every school has a list of students who are on that list to make sure that those students' individual needs are being met. If they, for example, need support with their GPA, they're not being successful in their classes, why are they not being successful? He will go out and work with the schools and be an advocate for the student to make sure that those needs are being met. Also, there will be school-based accountability for the fidelity of the student support plans. So he will be meeting with the school counselors as well as the administration to see why or to provide additional support for those students to ensure that they are getting what they need to be successful. Also, a very important part of that is our mentorship, which is our AIM Ambassador program, which we hope to have staff as well as community partners actually be mentors to mentor these students. We know that students do best when they have someone as an advocate standing up for them and providing that support. So we want to implement that. That will be unveiled in August. Attendance matters. This is designed to promote regular school attendance through prevention and intervention practices that emphasize in our schools relationship building, and this will be done with monthly themed incentives that we're going to provide to schools, and they'll have their own. Also in our classroom, we know that we need to provide engaging lessons so our students will want to come to school and be involved in their learning. And also our community, we want to provide supports and services to ensure that we have those supports in place via the church or via GYAC to help us ensure that our students are in school. SDIRC Ready, Set, Go. This is where we're celebrating Disability and Awareness Weeks. In October, we're going to teach disability history to enhance knowledge of disability rights through daily announcements. We also will do this through activities and lessons that are engaging, that are pertaining to this topic. We did this last year, but really we want to kick it up a notch to make sure that our parents are a part of that. And we're going to do that through a culminating activity where we have a family fun day, where we're strengthening the family and relationships with our parents and our community, where they'll be able to participate in a 5K run. They'll be able to participate in an inclusion dance. Our students, we're going to have some high school students, especially at Sebastian River High School, perform for us, have face painting and live music, food trucks, et cetera. And that's going to be on October 9th. So we already have that. And our parents are actually planning this, these 2 weeks to make sure that it's, you know, we have all stakeholders in mind when we're planning this, not just one group. And last but not least, we have our last initiative, and I'm going to ask Dr. McMahon to come up and share this with us.
Good morning. Power BI is a data visualization tool. However, it's not just a pretty chart maker. In education, we have a lot of data, whether it's academic, behavioral, social, emotional. And what we found is that even we have so much data that it can actually arrest the development of some of our programs. And so what Power BI does, it allows us to control how we visualize the data, how we position the data, how we can clear some of the noise for our school and district-based leaders. Paying attention to each of these key initiatives, a lot of them are data-driven. A lot of them require us to filter through the myriad amounts of data to really get to those nuggets and those truths to exact change. So one of the examples, we have a middle school acceleration app. It allows our principals to very quickly and clearly see who is not in the courses they need to be in. They've always been able to. We've always had access to the data, but it's a multi-step process, and principals are very busy doing a lot of other things. So here at the district, we can position that data and very quickly show them these are the students that need to move. They don't need to go in and filter or to slice or to combine multiple sources of data. We can do that through Power BI. We have over 60 dashboards. It can be as simple as what I just talked about, is just giving, here are students. Particularly that middle school acceleration, at the beginning of the year, we had 120 kids that should have been in algebra. Through that app, those 120 students were able then to get that algebra course in 8th grade. Otherwise, they would have just fallen through the progression cracks with the schedule. But it can also be a more complex. We have Goal Tracker. It's a multivariable regression model that predicts a school grade based off of some of our summative assessments that we administer throughout the year, whether it be iReady or unit assessments. And it actually has allowed principals to see where they are in terms of their school grade. And it's a live daily update, so as they make changes, they can see the fruits of those changes. So this is a product through Microsoft. It truly has become our superpower. A lot of the principals have, when an app isn't updated when they want, they're constantly emailing, asking us, when is that update going to happen? When can I see where my data is? So it truly has become a tool in our toolbox that is leading to some fantastic changes. So thank you.
Good morning, school board members. Good morning, Mr. Payne. From the finance department, we got SmartPay. SmartPay will create an online experience like Amazon for all the fundraising activities at a school. So once the school loads all their fundraisers onto this platform, family members can all go and participate, can buy all they want, all from the comforts of their home, just like on Amazon. Another one we have is Budget Blast for 21-22 budgeting process. We took a deep dive into 2021. What did we spend? How did we spend it? Why did we spend it? Then we turned that around and said, okay, for 21-22, it's got to be value-based. What are you bringing to the table? Why do you need it? And does it provide a return to us? If it does, we put it in the budget. If we didn't, got to talk to Dr. Moore about that. After that, we also want to squeeze every dollar out of every millions of dollars that we get. We want to squeeze every dime that we can get. We want to be as efficient and as effective as possible with all taxpayer dollars. Finally, we want to train principals as well as department heads how to build their budget and manage their budget so they become experts in that field as well. Next, employee benefits. Everybody knows that if you don't feel good, you're not at your peak performance. So we want all of our employees to be as healthy as possible. So we want to make sure they understand that care here is here for you. You can get your checkups, you can get your meds, you can get your prescriptions, you can get your labs and everything done, see a doctor, ask any questions. And it's all free. Schedule an appointment and go in. We want to make sure everyone is healthy in the district. We also have a wellness position being added next year. This position will help all employees hit all of their wellness goals for next year. Next one from employee benefits is healthcare options for retirees. We don't only want the people who are working for us healthy, we also want to take care of our retirees when they leave. So our plan has several options in the retiree side of the house that has multiple options for multiple packages that will give them the biggest bang for their buck and keep them fully insured through their retirement years. We want to keep all staff healthy while they work for us and once they leave. Next, I'll turn over to Mr. McDonald for some technology.
Good morning. Sharing is caring. We have worked with the most awesome board secretary around to do training for our non-instructional staff in order to save Word documents and scan PDFs so that they're accessible by screen readers for our disabled viewers, anyone looking at these documents. We have so many things that may get emailed, may get shared on the website that we just need to make sure that we're ADA compliant. But probably one of the best little side notes to this is the fact that once you save that in this format, they're searchable. Yes, we can actually find stuff on our PDFs. So, okay. Then be positive. We have a positive behavior module, free, that's within Focus, that Student Services and Technology Services actually went through and enabled. We trained Storm Grove in pre-K, and what this will enable the teachers and administration to do is to actually go through and say something nice about our students. You were prepared, you had proper wireless technology usage, you were kind to another student. They can then take these points and use them for lunch with an administrator. They had signpost bingo cards that they could get at Storm Grove and all sorts of other options. Parents can go in with the Focus app and can actually look and see that their students have X amount of points, and the kids, which was just a nice side benefit, they're competing to see how many rewards they can get. So they're actually being better students just to get more points and get more bonuses at the school. The administrators can actually walk around, using the new badges that you all just approved, which will be really nice, that the administrators will actually be able to take their little Focus app, students in the halls, and say, hey, let me go ahead and scan that, and I just rewarded you some points just by being a nice student in the halls. So,
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Pass it on to Mr. Bass.
Thank you very much. Excited to present some of the human capital and operation new initiatives. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Seymour for the first two initiatives.
The champions list. Well, if you know the numbers, roughly we have approximately 1,000 students in athletics at Vero Beach High School and Sebastian River High. And we know too, and I was one of those who played football at Vero Beach High School, self-efficacy is important to keep the interests of students and keep them engaged in the classroom. If they have something in front of them, they want to participate. Well, the champions list, you might have witnessed the African American Student Council over at the GYAC perform, which was an outstanding group. This was put together in a short time. I called up Mr. Morgan and Mr. Cummings. Within a day and a half, they had chosen the students who would be great participants. These students not only performed well on site, but also out in the community by spreading the information necessary where people will have access to the information. And this was one of the things surveyed by those students that showed that it was a concern. In addition to that, they talked about funding. Students didn't have the monies to participate in certain activities. A lot of these activities are carried on over the summer. You have the travel squads and other programs. Well, those students have first dibs at programs that are offered on campuses. So giving those students that information and giving them the opportunity to tell us what the needs are, I think they've made a great impact and are going to get even better. Next slide. The Good Cause Committee, based on Florida Statute 1006.20 regarding recruitment, students have different issues and concerns that sometimes coaches can't deal with. For instance, we've had 3 students this past year that would have possibly been eliminated from participating in any program due to their home life and circumstances. With the Good Cause Committee, we were able to pull together 8 athletic directors, 3 participants within the district to determine eligibility for those individual students. So going forward, that's our plan, to listen to students, give them as much opportunity as possible based on hardships.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. The next 3 that I'm going to go over, I just want to preface it with, a lot of times in operations, we don't really get to see the real positive things that we're doing, but taking the moment here to show you some of those things that we are setting forth this year, and I'm really excited about all 3 of them. The first one is our Secret Shopper program. In our food service category, our number one goal is to provide a healthy, nutritious meal to our students. A lot of times we have students who don't have that at home, so this is a critical part of their success at school, is making sure that the nutrition is there. So we want to improve the service we're providing our students and the product, thus our Secret Shopper program, where each school will select secretly 5 to 10 students who will go in the fall and will grade our food service program. They're going to grade them on food presentation, food quality, customer service, and overall experience. We then will take that information back to the manager and the staff, work on those areas, and then do a follow-up in the spring to compare the improvement. Really want to credit Ms. Simonton and her staff for putting this together. I think it's very well needed, and it's going to be an exciting opportunity. Our next initiative is in the area of transportation. Where's my ride? We spent a lot of time at this on the last board workshop and board meeting, but for sake of going through it again, we will be issuing ID cards to all students, and they will be able to wear them on a breakaway lanyard such as this. And everyone asked about the breakaway lanyard, so if kids being kids and they come around, they pull each other,
it breaks away. Sorry. Yeah, I hope I didn't have the super glued one. But it'll break away, so you can't, pull them away, so forth. But on the ID will be a picture ID of the student. The student will be able to access media services, food, lunchroom line, swipe the card on and off, getting off the bus. For accountability purposes, there is no tracking element that in that card that will be with the student. The accountability for transportation will come in two areas. Number one, it will give us the identity of the student for our FTE surveys. Number two, it will be able to tell us if the student was on the bus, what time they got on the bus, and if they got off of the bus and what time and location they got off the bus, which will come in very handy when we do time to time have students that may get off the bus and don't go to where they're supposed to go. And also within the Where's My Ride, we have a parent app that will be able to set up so parents will be able to see when the school bus is coming to their home to pick up their child, which will cut down a lot on anxiety of is the bus coming or where are they or they're late. Then the last slide I'm going to present to you is one that I am super excited about this. Bob Michael has really taken an area that we needed improvement on and has come up with a design and a plan and just an overall vision that is going to truly enhance the life of our special needs students. The title of it is Limitless, and we are focused on inclusion play. This is a way of creating physical spaces and products to address the inherent differences in our students. The areas that we will be focusing on is the flexibility, choice, accommodating features, eliminate playground barriers, encouragement of personal growth, the creation of new friendships, and the activities that provide multi-sensory experiences. All of these things are traits that special needs students need to focus on and build up. All will meet ADA guidelines. The key elements of design in these playgrounds will be a transfer station point so the child can move from their mobility device to the playground safely, ramps to help them with their mobility device, access and egress points through the playground. A lot of times you may look at a playground and you only have a certain square area or shape area, and you may have too much equipment packed in and there's no transfer access for special needs students. So that'll be looking at that. Looping pattern to create a flow for the child on the playground so they can take advantage of all the equipment. Accessibility pathways to access to all equipment. Servicing that meets ADA standards. And lastly, and most importantly, I feel like, is shade. A lot of our playgrounds are in a wide open field, and students need to have that opportunity to get in out of the hot Florida sun from time to time, and making sure shade access is there is going to be critical for these students. Possible phase 2 elements that we're looking at that we'll be able to include in Limitless is music components, communication devices, dramatic play stations, cozy spots. So a student can come in and be out of the noise and just have a spot to rest and just kind of decompress, and activity panels. Again, this is a super project, and it's something that we can't get accomplished all in 1 year, but we'll be progressing over this over the years. It's going to be tremendous for our special needs students. The last slide that we have, or initiative that we have, is the Find Me Digital Handbook, and I'm going to ask our HR crew to come up and present this. Ms. Hofer, Dr. Suit, and Ms. Oak.
Good morning. So one of the things that we've been doing in HR all year is working collaboratively to elevate customer service. And one of the things coming in new this year that I found is that there's a lot of phone calls of where do I find this? What website do I go to on the district website? So the idea is to create a digital handbook that would be on the website for all new and already existing employees, but also to have it in print for the new employees. So Dr. Sood is holding our onboarding box, which we will be giving one to every new employee, not just instructional, but support staff as well, at the new employee, not new teacher, but new employee orientation at the end of July. And don't show all the goodies, but don't show all the goodies yet. So this, we're going to be, the very exciting last part is that, you know, I am recruiting, and at one of our career fairs with an HBCU FAMU, I met a candidate who is a sophomore, going to be a junior this coming year, business major, and she needed to do an internship. So I kind of been talking to her maybe about teaching with a business administration degree. She's going to be interning with us in HR this summer, and she's going to be working with us on this project. So we're super excited to have her. And she is from here as well. So it will be digital for everyone, and we'll also have an imprint in our outboarding box that we'll be giving out at the new employee orientation.
Thank you, ladies. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Seymour.
No, it's only one slide. Thank you. The Climate Task Force, climate is also an acronym for convening leaders and maximizing access to education. Who best to go to than some of our retired leaders in our communities, some of the Gifford High School and Old Vero Beach High School, people who know how it once was and have seen some good things, to get their perspectives and feedback to continue a growth pattern in our district is vital. We are going to assemble this committee and in the process of doing that, and expect that we will be up and running within 2 weeks. We ask that individuals who are interested in participating give us positive feedback, because the total purpose is to include inclusion of students who may have differences when it comes to sitting in the classroom and looking around at other students who may have things, you know, come to them differently. But we want to make sure that all students have the access and information and ability to perform equally. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This is coming from the Office of Communications and our new initiatives that we are very excited about. I can't say save the best for last, because all of the initiatives are so awesome. This year's mission is Mission Possible, if you notice our shirts, and that's kind of a play off of Ready for Launch last year. So we're going with the Mission Space theme, so stay tuned for more on that. My first initiative here for our office is Communication Coalition, and this is a group of social media and website administrators that we'll have at each school. They'll be receiving weekly newsletters, and we'll have quarterly meetings to make sure that we are all on the same themes. We have the same recognition events and days, and we just want all of our schools to present the same information and be on the same page. So each school will have a Facebook and Twitter. There will be trainings involved as well to make sure that everyone knows how to properly manage the website and their platforms. And moving on to our next initiative, we have SDIRC Campus Life. I'm probably most excited about this one, and I think the kids are too. The students at the Superintendent's Advisory Council love this idea, and they actually gave me a lot of good follow-up about it. This is a pilot program at our schools where students will be learning about the importance of internet and social media safety under the supervision of a staff member at the school, while sharing a glimpse into the campus life from a student's point of view. So the students will be running their own social media campus life platform. Again, all the posts will be approved. They will go through a supervisor. We'll have weekly newsletters to make sure that the student groups are staying on themes as well. And I'm just really looking forward to working with them on this so that everyone can see from a student's point of view what is going on campus. Next, we have the Community Connection. And this is an email distribution group of local organizations and individuals. We will be providing weekly newsletters from the Office of Communications. And the point of this is we contacted community leaders to add to the list. So we were able to call around and talk to a lot of people. And they approved being on the list. And we surveyed families regarding the most preferred methods of communication, and when we reflected on that, we realized not everyone has connection to the internet. Not everyone can get onto Facebook or Twitter or even our website. So we're leaving it in the hands of, not all in the hands, but we're leaving it partially in the hands of individuals, community leaders, and community organizations who serve our students and our families, for them to let us know when they receive this weekly newsletter what information and in what media of communication they would like to receive it. So if they have members in their organization that they know would like a hard copy of something, we can provide them with hard copies. We can send out a school messenger call. We can send out an email. We want to make sure we are communicating with everyone in the way that is most efficient and easy for them. Last but not least, get more connected. I keep forgetting my click. Sorry, I'm so excited I keep forgetting I'm writing this. Get more connected. You see what we did with that title? We're very proud of that. So our district has gotten very used to Facebook Lives. Throughout the pandemic, Dr. Moore, he was on once or twice a week, and now they're popular and expected by our community and our families. And this will be a live stream monthly informational program. I will be hosting it and highlighting different SDIRC initiatives, programs, and guests. Now, the difference with this is that we'll be serving our families in different ways to see what topic they want to hear about most. So we'll make sure that all of the hot topics and the latest updates that really have our families viewing this will be shown on this show. That's it. Wow, that was quick. Okay, thank you.
So members of the board, as I'm going to shift or modify my closing, because honestly, just a sense of appreciation in terms of the work that everyone has done. Overwhelmed, really. And the reality, what makes a good system or a good organization is when the individuals take their work personal. They own it. They embrace it. It is part of who they are. And as I have worked with this team over the last 15 months, and as they have worked with this teams, one of the best indications of the success of this system are the people within the system and how they have rolled up their sleeves and pushed through the pandemic. I mean, really, honestly, forget about the pandemic. This system went above and beyond and said, okay, we're just not going to deal with the pandemic. We're going to create 37 different initiatives. And to be honest with you, we had to cut some because we didn't want to be here all day. But no doubt about it, these people who are behind us and in their offices listening understand, embrace the work that they're doing. And I hope each and every single one of them have that same sense of pride that I have, because they're the ones who are going to make a world-class system. Not the board, not me, them. And each and every single one of us should be proud of the work we are doing in an extremely complex, difficult time with all kind of political grandstanding take place. These individuals do the work, and do the work because it's in the best interest of children. So as we roll out 37 new initiatives, all aligned to our strategic plan, I am so excited about how this effort, these systematic way of thinking, is going to drastically improve the quality of instruction and support and environments at our school system as we move into the next school year. So with that, Mr. Barefoot, that is the presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions the board members may have.
So that's as impressive a presentation. The graphics are terrific, the explanation. I'm sure everybody has lots of comments or questions, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Because everybody's got their hand up. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to let Suzanne. This is the order in which you can make your comments or ask your questions. Why don't you? No, you pick. You just pull, the first one you pull is who's next.
Number one, District 1. I'm sorry, what? Not the system. Good morning, everybody, and thank you. Thank you, people in the audience, for being here. Thank you, all of you, for what Mr. Barefoot mentioned was as good a presentation as it gets, and the mic is not on. Okay, that better? All right. Gosh, a bunch of comments. So I don't know how you want to do this, Mr. Barefoot, if you want to go through all comments or go through a certain number of them and pass along, or,
Well, why doesn't everybody just make 4 or 5 points, comments, questions, and then we can circle
and then we'll
back?
circle back.
Because
Very good.
somebody's going to ask a question that everybody else, or a comment that everybody else was
I
going
have,
to make.
now
so.
I got to order them. Love the shirts, rocking the T-shirts. And I want to say also that I have now sat through 3 springs, early summers here in this district, and this is the first time I have ever seen a presentation like this. This is the first time I have seen vision put into action, new initiatives presented in a way to guide and define the next year and years of our district. This is a real departure from how we have done business in the past. And I thank Dr. Moore, and I thank each and every one of you, because it really is extraordinary. I know I'm echoing his words, but I want to voice that for myself as well. This ain't nothing. So thank you for that. My comments sort of ran in the order of presentation, so I'm going to try and pick out certain significant ones so that I have a little for everybody, which means I've got to read my completely disheveled notes here. Mr. Meyer, a couple questions on the college and career Catapult and the PATH program, which is, can you, and I'll ask 2 in 1 question, and then I'll move on. 1, for the college and career Catapult, one of the things you mentioned was that every student will have a CCA course. So my first question is, can you give an example of what that is and what that looks like? Hang on, I have a follow-up. I have a second question. I'll just ask them at once. On the PATH program, because this is a program, as the parent of an incoming senior, I'm incredibly excited about, and as Dr. Moore knows, I've been hammering his ear about all, and he's always one step ahead of me, which is really cool. I always say, what are we doing about this? He's like, got it covered. So I'd like to know an example of what that looks like for a student as a CCA course, and on the PATH program, which I'm incredibly excited about. But I also know that as a parent, it's sometimes hard to figure out access to that information. Can you talk a little bit about how that information is going to get to parents? Because I'm not sure we can rely on our juniors and seniors to give us that information. And that is apparently a Pam question.
Right, so we'll tag team this. So like many of our initiatives, it does take collaboration between the cabinet and our directors to make things be successful. But as far as the college and career components, one of the things, once again, that we've been supported with another office, the dashboards that Dr. McMahon has created enables the school-based leaders to take a look at which students have already participated in a course and which ones have not. From there, we can do some deep problem solving as to what were the barriers to lack of participation from certain individual students or groups of students into the programs. Something I forgot to mention is that as part of the Perkins 5, every 2 years, the district has to go through a comprehensive local needs assessment where we'll look at the programs that we were offering in CTE. So one of the other things that we'll do this year is to work with the Student Advisory Council, work with the students to problem solve. Is a barrier to hitting that 90% goal just offering the right courses? We may find that there are different AP courses, there are different dual enrollment courses, there are different CTE courses that if those were offered, of course, they would need to align with different program criteria. But we need to listen to the student's voice, and that's part of the work that we're going to do. And just continue to problem solve what barriers are in existence. You want to get those students in through those courses as early as possible. That's one of the beauties of the dashboard that Dr. Mann's created, and that you can look at each cohort. We're not just waiting until senior year to say, oh my gosh, you haven't taken a dual enrollment course or you haven't taken a CTE course, where we can look at each cohort, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and start to set some criteria that we want to get more students enrolled in the courses as early as possible, much like the 90 by 9. As soon as you can, you should. And if not, what were the barriers to that, and how can we improve that? So that's, I guess, part of an answer. The pathway, I'll have to get a Pam, but if you have a follow-up for that, I can.
Yeah, just to clarify that when you say a CCA course, just to clarify, what you mean by that is, for example, an AP course, an IB course, a technical course, a
Correct.
technical ed course, something that gives a student an opportunity to develop the skills to plan for what comes after high school.
Correct.
I just want to clarify that
Correct.
for anybody who's listening.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
In reference to notifying the parents, as I said, we have a path advisor that is dedicated, this is their job, to servicing the students in that career, and college and career pathway. We're going to be doing webinars on demand. When we do webinars, there will be a school messenger, as well as Focus will be updated to notify parents as well as the students that we have a new webinar. Say it's financial aid, bright futures, it will be on demand. We will also have parents, resources for our parents on the website. We're updating that right now. I have people that are coming in over the summer to update. It's going to be like a counselor corner, and each school will have a counselor corner that will look the same for our high schools with all the resources. So it's a one-stop shop. In addition to, information will be available in our score for our parents. And you'll have access to that where you can look at colleges, you can compare the prices, all those things that you normally have to get on Google and research. It will be in that score platform where you can go in and compare, like choose the schools and compare the costs, what they offer, what are the requirements, how students are getting jobs after that. It gives you a whole smorgasbord of information in that platform. And our school counselors have already been trained on that, and we're going to be unveiling that in the fall, in August. We're also going to have a mandatory parent night, and that's already scheduled. It's on the calendar for all of our schools. We're going to have one at Sebastian, and we're going to have one at Vero, where all of our parents are required to come so they can find out what we're doing to prepare our students for college and career, because we've heard that that has been a question, for many parents, and a bit of frustration for many parents. So we want to be able to provide that, but we're also going to videotape that as well for those parents who cannot, participate, and we'll let them know. School messenger, we had an event. It's available on our website, and we'll be working with the Office of Communication to make sure that that's available for our parents. So we really want to beef up our communication with parents about the opportunities we're providing for our students for next year. And I think these platforms are going to be a game changer, as well as our path advisors. And I can tell you they're excited. They already have things outlined, and they're going to be working over the summer. They're 10-month employees, but we're having them come in to help prepare for this.
Thank you, because I'm going to be all over that. And
I know.
I'm the parent who's like Googling colleges and can't wait to try the
And
score system.
we can also give you access. We'll have to give you a dummy. They don't do it for parents like a dummy, but we can give you access so you can go in and play
I'd
with
love to
it.
do that.
So we'll
Thank
do
you.
that.
Thank you, because I'm going to be coming back on this.
Yes.
Another question, this is kind of for all of you, but might wind up being a Dr. McMahon question. I know that when we roll out these initiatives, what's really important is that we have ways to measure our success and our progress. We need progress measures and we need outcome measures. So how are measures also then being designed and attached to these initiatives? And if that's through Power BI, by the way, what does BI stand for? If it does anything. And if that's through Power BI, I don't know who that question goes to, if it's a Dr. McMahon or if it's a Dr. Moore question.
So one of the business intelligence. I was going to say information.
Oh, okay.
I knew it was business something. I think one of the unique things about how we're doing this work, which locally has not been done here, is each initiative you noticed identified to a pillar within our strategic plan. I say pillar, focus area within our strategic plan. As you begin to see the annual targets for myself and ultimately cabinet members and senior staff members, you'll see that level of alignment. And each initiative will be evaluated in terms of creating a criteria. So as we problem solve throughout the year, did this initiative yield the desired result? So you'll see annual targets coming before the board for approval as we move into what will be our strategic plan for next year. A significant number of those annual targets will be supported, or the data elements will be supported or achieved through these initiatives. So each one will be linked. And I think as we continue to grow Dr. McMahon's area, now has a data coach, has another data team member. The big piece that's missing in his office really is the research. You know, doing the forward thinking to say, well, if that's what you're going to do, what's the intended result? What does the research say? And how are we going to evaluate that success? And that's just a standard practice most organizations have already embraced, and we'll continue to grow that. So we're just not going to do things. It'll be a thought-out, research-based process in order to ensure we're hitting the targets that we define for ourselves.
Thank you. I would look forward to, at some point, a school board member workshop on those measures and how those are going to be tied together at some point in the future. I'll just go with two quick other things, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues. I think one of my absolute, I had a lot of favorites in this, but an absolute favorite, Mr. Bass, is the inclusive play spaces. Brilliant. Why it took us this long, I don't know. And I'm so happy that we are attending to that. Can you talk a little bit about the time frame and how that's going to be rolled out, and if it's going to be at all schools, or a little bit, can you flesh that out a little bit for me so that I understand the process of how that's going to occur?
Well, Dr. Schiff, all the credit goes to Bob Michael. And Bob,
is he?
Bob, are you here? Bob will come up and answer that directly for you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Yeah, so we've met with the ESE staff in March and developed kind of a design schedule and a project schedule for how we'd move forward. Met with the ESE department staff and the schools in April, and we identified 4 schools that we want to address in the next 2 years. So those schools are Rosewood, Sebastian Elementary, Liberty Magnet, and Citrus. And that was based off of the needs at those schools. So that'll be our first phase, basically. As Mr. Bass said, this is going to be a multi-year project. Right now, we're in the design and strategy stage. So we've got equipment that we're selecting, working with the administrators through the summer. We hope to have the design parameters put together in August, and we'll be doing budgeting in August. And as our new capital rolls out in October, we'll start working on the first 2 schools, which right now we're probably going to focus on Sebastian Elementary and Citrus, those 2 in this school year. And then as we roll into next summer, we'll be focusing on Liberty and Rosewood and finishing those schools. We'd like this to move forward. I mean, basically what we're going to be doing is building inclusive design in all playgrounds going forward. So, you know, every year we replace a playground at one of our schools. So this will be something that we're building, and we'll carry that on throughout all the playgrounds in the district as they get replaced. So.
Thank you. So if I'm hearing you right, over the course of next year, not sure I'm hearing this right, we anticipate finishing the work at Citrus and Sebastian, and we chose those because of their high needs for those
Absolutely.
spaces. And then in the summer, we'll roll out to Liberty and
Rosewood.
Right. And we anticipate completing those 2 in the following academic year?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. And then we'd carry that forward as we replace playgrounds throughout the district. So.
Thank you.
You know, and if you know, based on budget, if we're able to move quicker at the other schools, obviously we will. But we have to be realistic. These, you know, obviously playgrounds are pretty expensive to replace. So, but as Mr. Bass said, we're very excited about it. I mean, this is a paradigm shift, actually.
It is.
So as we've built playgrounds in the past, since I've been here 4 years, it really has been, you know, we do ADA compliance all day long. That's required. That's code required. Inclusive playgrounds is actually more than just ADA. Right. It's really building in the design elements to allow all the kids to play, depending on what their needs are. So if it's communication, sensory, physical, we build all of those elements into our playgrounds.
Fabulous. Thank you. That actually ties a bit to, which I won't talk much about, but the AIM initiative that Ms. Dampier, where I particularly like that you attended to and talked about building spaces for the whole child. You know, the whole child comes in with his or her physical needs, her mental, emotional, social, psychological needs, and all of those don't get left at the classroom door in order to focus on math and algebra and English. You know, we serve whole children, not just children taking, needing to meet academic standards. So I really appreciate our movement towards understanding how we build spaces that address and include a broader set of needs for kids. My last comment for the moment will be, and then I'll stop, Mr. Barefoot, and we can move on, is the IDs. The other thing I really love, one of the other things I love, there are many, again, is the ID system. We are long overdue, and it has long been problematic that parents whose kids are late on a bus or the bus comes late in the morning have had a hard time getting the answers they need, and this will enable them to know, exactly when to go to the bus stop, exactly when to come home, when to start worrying if their child is late. It's also an ID system for safety and security, which we have long needed. So I really love this initiative. I'm wondering, while I think this is fabulous, and it's hard for me to understand why it wouldn't be, there are parents who may choose to opt out of this system who, for whatever reason, may not want their child tracked in this way. Is there an option for parents to opt out?
Through the chair, the only way they're going to get tracked, they're not getting tracked, it's just their ridership is getting tracked. So the students are getting tracked. We haven't really talked about an opt-out for the ID card because it's going to have so many benefits for so many other things. But for school safety purposes, I don't know that an opt-out is really an option, honestly, because you think about it, and this was a big move after Stoneman Douglas, is you had schools that went to this ID system who was not using it before, and, not to bring up bad things about that, but the student who came on to Stoneman Douglas was a student there, but had no identifying indication that he went to school there, brought the items that he brought on there to do the mayhem that he did. And, we've got to be able to identify students. We have had in this district and my previous district, at times you have kids that come to your child's campus who don't go to school there. And it's easy when you have kids coming on in the morning and they just blend in. And we've got to be able to identify those students.
Personally, I completely agree with you. I don't know if anybody else in this room has watched, as I have, because I teach courses in this, the videos of what happened at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and it's horrifying. Anything we can do to prevent any circumstance of harm coming to our kids, personally, I'm in favor of. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'll turn it over now to my colleagues, and then we'll go another round if need be.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. I see that some of you have matching T-shirts and a couple of you aren't on the team, so I'm just curious about that. Mr. Meyer, come on. All right. Same thing with the ESE playground. A couple years ago, when I first came on the board, I asked why we were adapting playgrounds in some schools and not others. And the answer I got from Mr. Teskey at the time was that it was less expensive that when a student moved onto a campus to change the hardware that was at the school for the playground than it was to just have it there. And my question to him was, well, how do you know when students are going to move on? I mean, having been a principal, I know that kids walk in every day and they're new, and if they come with the needs they come with, we have to have that already in place. We can't say, oh, now that you're here, we're going to adapt. So I appreciate the fact that we're going to think ahead of the box. And I was told it was money, as everything usually is, but I will say that this is a really good focus for our money. Kids will feel included if that is already there and not adapted for them, so thank you. Shade. I know Citrus already has that. I believe in the past, some parents have dug in their pockets for providing shade for our schools. Where are we with shade for every playground on our campuses?
Through the chair, again, that would be budgeted item. There's some inexpensive ways out there now to provide shade for playgrounds. And Bob, I know I'm going to mess it up, but it's the nylon stretched out fabrics that are, you anchor it in a pole and then you stretch it out. I mean, that is a tremendous and simple way to provide shade. As far as providing shade for playgrounds in the order that we're in, Bob, I'm going to have to get you back to you again on that.
Yeah, because I would like that to be a focus right away, to get shade at least at every campus for elementary schools.
Yeah, so as you're saying, the shade structures actually are very expensive, and a lot of it has to do with the code requirements because of the hurricane code. So an average shade similar to the one that's at VBE off of 20th Street, that's about a $65,000 to $70,000 shade, so they're extremely expensive. What I've been doing is trying to work with the playground companies to look at different options. A lot of it is building smaller shade structures for the kids to be able to basically seek shade. They play on the playgrounds, and then as they get hot, they could rest in shaded areas off to the side. I think going forward, that really is probably the best solution for solving that problem. We're just finding that the larger shades, not only do we have the cost of the shade, but there's a life cycle that's pretty short on the fabric. We get maybe 10 years out of them, and then they have to be replaced and stuff like that. Even the structures themselves over time are failing because of environmental conditions. So looking for, different alternatives, as Mr. Bass said, using the cell shades in places where that could work, but also building the smaller 20 by 20 shade structures, I think, is a good option.
And they can be taken down like during the summer to protect them from hurricanes and everything else.
The smaller ones, yeah, especially the smaller ones. Those large ones that are 60 by 80 are very difficult for us to be able to take down in many cases. They're actually designed to stay up in heavy winds, but we have taken them down in the past, and it's a difficult thing to do during hurricanes, obviously.
One of the things I would like to see at least, and this was a STEAM activity I do with kindergartners, to teach them how to read a thermometer. I would have them go and put them in different areas of the playground.
Right.
And they were amazed at the slide because of, slides being metal. A lot of slides now are plastic.
Plastic, correct.
But even the plastic, they were seeing how much those heated up. And I don't know if you've ever witnessed kids getting a burn from going down the slide, but it's not pretty. So
Right.
I would like to see maybe at least those areas protected.
Sure, absolutely. We're also looking at playgrounds as we build them to have the shade incorporated on the structure. So they're basically made out of, PVC and those type of materials that are meant to last much longer.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
The second question I have is about PD Reignite. Will board members be invited to that? Because I know you have pre-Reignite tomorrow. I didn't see an invitation for that, but will we be invited to Ignite?
You're welcome at any time you would like to join us. We'll make sure you have the information and location.
Can we get an invitation? That's
We'll
my
get it to
question.
you.
Because we live off of the Microsoft invitations.
Absolutely.
It's easier to keep track. I think that it's important that board members are at professional development, especially when you have people criticizing or concerned about what is being taught in classrooms. And I think it's important for us to see exactly how it's being presented and how teachers are instructed at the beginning to use the materials so that we understand that. So when we get those calls throughout the year about something that might have happened in a classroom that is concerning, and we know, we have seen what the expectation should have been. So I would really appreciate that. My third one is on the 90 by 9, the math. Will Tier 2 interventions start to be more prevalent for math in our elementary schools? Because in the past, when students are failing in reading and math, it's almost always reading intervention. And it's very frustrating for a math specialist in 5th grade, but also sometimes a student, if we look at historically what we've done for interventions over and over again for reading, sometimes the kids just need a different intervention to get sparked by that for reading. And so we're leaving math by the wayside, and I'm concerned about the fact that interventions haven't been happening in the past for especially elementary, for 4th, 3rd, 5th grade.
Absolutely, and that's another one of those partnership initiatives. Ms. Dampier's team did a lot of great work and working around MTSS. And it's not just the student side of MTSS, it's the organizational side of MTSS. I mean, exactly to your point, if we are attempting specific reading interventions that CNI is recommending or math and, interventions and they're not working, then we need to select a different intervention organizationally, and we need to make sure, to your point about the individual student, that we're looking to see if the student is responding to that as well. So I think they did a great team, the team did a great job rolling that out. We'll look to make sure it's implemented in the course of the next year. But once again, that is what we were talking about, looking for opportunities within the day in elementary school, looking for after school opportunities, summer opportunities for math. Because to your exact point, the majority of those extended learning opportunities have been ELA in nature, and we need to add more for math. So taking a good look at that.
The next question is about Big Ideas Education Foundation. So we did look at forming an Indian River School District Foundation. So is that now going by the wayside since we're partnering more with Ed Foundation?
Through the chair, we want to maximize that relationship. And I think over the last several months, Ms. Emerson has really defined the opportunity to coordinate those efforts to ensure that we're maximizing the funds that we're going to raise. So I think the recommendation is to begin implementing there. And if we're able to meet that need for the school board and the children within the school system, then we're good. So we implement, define the initiative and see if it's going to yield the results that we know that we need to be able to provide for our students.
So I'm interpreting that as it's on the back burner.
If we're able to produce the revenue with what's currently in place by partnering and maximizing that relationship, that would be the easiest, most efficient way to go. So yes.
Okay, thank you. And I have one more, if that's okay. Last one's on choice options. So you mentioned October 9th as parent seminars. How will that work so parents can view all the programs during that? I mean, sometimes you go and they're all presenting at the same time, so how will parents know all their options and what they can see through all of that? Is it through Zoom? Is it live?
It's live. It'll be at the IG Center. So there's 4 sessions that are going to be broken up through the day. So parents could spend the entire time, if they want to, circulating around to the different stations and visit each and every school, or they can attend one of the sessions where it's going to be a breakout, where we're going to invite in Mental Health Association, different organizations within our district to present, and those will be clearly defined so parents can figure out where they want to go. And so I do have the choice booklet, which is helpful. If parents want to view that in advance, they can. If they want to prioritize certain schools that align to their family's needs and what they think their child will be interested in, then they can prioritize them. The schools will be an open session. That's completely open. People can rotate around and meet the different stakeholders at each site, as well as the community partnership area. That will be completely open during all the sessions, but breakouts will take place throughout the day that will be planned and organized, so they'll know. We're also working with transportation to have depot spots around the district. One will be at Gifford Youth Achievement Center. Right now we're planning for one to be at Sebastian River High School and one to be at Fellsmere. So we'll be able to pick up from those locations and then bring back to those locations so that parking is hopefully not an issue.
And this booklet, is that already available?
Oh yeah,
And how do parents get it?
The choice booklet, we've done several Facebook Lives utilizing this. It's been shared on social media. If you just even Google Indian River County Choice, it goes right to the choice booklet. Not only do we have the booklet, but we also have a s'more that's set up with every single video. If parents just want to see the school choice videos where every single principal is sharing what their school is offering, they can watch those. We kind of envisioned, because of the pandemic, this was one of those silver lining situations. Parents can sit at home in the comfort of their house, drink a cup of coffee and look through, or they can join us at the IG Center and not just hear and see and have hands-on experiences like we had today, but then leave and then be able to invest again, going home, looking through, and really making the best choice for their family.
Thank you. Yeah, I did see all that on there. I just want to make sure that parents were aware of it in lots of different ways, so thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for that presentation. Let me make sure this is on. I had been eagerly awaiting this presentation to hear all of the initiatives moving forward, so I'm very, very excited to see how it will all unveil and when, and to see the progress at the end. I'm already hoping to see, by the end of next year, the results, maybe even throughout the year, the results of all of these wonderful initiatives. Several years ago, I'm going to start with the inclusion play and the playgrounds. A couple of years ago, I brought forward an item. Dr. Rendell was the superintendent, and Mrs. Berenborg spoke a little bit about the conversations that led from that. With regard to play, there was a question on why, and she's absolutely right, there were several questions on why we weren't able to make playgrounds more inclusive even then. And just to piggyback on what Mrs. Berenborg mentioned, another response was that it wasn't currently in our, at that time, in our capital plan, our 5-year capital plan that had already been approved, and I think Mr. Westenberger was there, Mr. Teskey might remember those conversations, and I think now that we seem to be all on the same page with this, moving forward, Mr. Fagan and Dr. Moore, even though our 5-year capital plan had already been and has already been approved, this board has the ability to adjust priorities. And if this is a priority for us moving forward, then I think we need to try to find a way to make it work, so that we don't have a 5-year plan for making playgrounds inclusive. If we can at least begin, as we mentioned, maybe we can extend it more than just 1 or 2 schools. Maybe we can extend to a few more if we can figure it out in our capital plan. This is long overdue. This is something that I think Dr. Moore and I talked about just recently about this same particular situation. I mentioned that there was a park in Texas that is an all-inclusive theme park for children with disabilities. But I think it goes a little bit more than just having a swing available for students in wheelchairs, or having special mulch, on the playground, so that, or a paved path for wheelchairs. It goes a little bit more than that, because in some of these really, really creative playgrounds, there are quiet booths, so that students who have autism or have sensitivity to hearing, even though there are children at play, they have an opportunity to kind of go into these quiet booths and kind of regroup, because the sound might be a little bit too much. There are also other opportunities for students who are blind, or who are legally blind, where you still see some vision, and there's some touch there for them on some of these play boards in these playgrounds. I have these grand visions of what these playgrounds look like, and I know that it's not going to look like a theme park. I would like it to, because I think it's that important. I also want us to take into consideration not just the physical disabilities, but the emotional ones as well. And we have not a large group, but we do have quite a few students who are deaf and hard of hearing in our community and our schools. So let's take a look at creating these environments so that all of the students have the ability to play there. I'm excited for it. I wonder if there are any philanthropists or donors out there who would listen to this talk and kind of want to donate to the creation of some of these playgrounds. So it's exciting, and I'm glad about that. I really, really am glad. With regard to the foundation, though, we as a board, we voted and we gave the superintendent the charge to move forward with creating the foundation. We have not yet come together. I know he and I have had individual conversations about where we were, but we as a board have not come together to discuss where we are in that. And I think that even though the opportunity was brought forth just now for the recommendation, I think that it ought to be presented to us at another session where we can all discuss that. We can discuss the opportunities of whether we want to put that on hold as a board, or indeed go forward with more collaboration or better collaboration with the Ed Foundation. And maybe at another time also invite Mr. Douglas, the executive director, to come in and kind of say, what is his vision? I know he's new in that position, fairly new. What is the position of the Ed Foundation and the collaboration between us? I don't believe that we have had that before. So I'd like to see us do that before we make any definitive decisions. I just want to give Mrs. Holden, Mrs. Dampier and Mrs. Holden a huge shout out. I know that the homeschool environment is not typically a priority for a public school system, and I get it, and I understand it. But I just wanted to give a little bit of maybe a little background for those who are kind of wondering, why is that up there on the screen as part of the district's initiatives? One of the reasons why I think it's so important for us to look at it from a different lens and a different perspective is because from the homeschool community, not everybody is homeschooling every year and know that they're going to do it every year. It's a walk of faith. One family member, all families at some point who are homeschooling you will most probably have a family member, mom or dad, who's not working. And so you don't know if the financial need for you to go back to work the following year is going to happen. And so if you do have to go back to work, then what happens with your child? More than likely your child is going to go back into the public school system. And so providing opportunities legally, statutorily, we are obligated to extend an invitation to the homeschool community for different opportunities that we have, such as our extended program, our clubs, our sports, and all that other kind of stuff. But extending opportunities for testing also we're obligated to do. Most homeschoolers are not going to grab hold of those opportunities because they want to homeschool. They want to separate completely from the public school system. Which is fine, and that's their option. But then there are other homeschoolers, because not everyone is the same, not everyone fits in the same box, who would welcome the support, who would welcome some of these opportunities. And so this is where it comes from, really, and Mrs. Holden has been fantastic. I want to say I had nothing to do with this. I spoke with a homeschooler just a few days ago. A mom contacted me and said that her child was a student here in the district before homeschooling. He received, I don't know if it was an IEP or 504 services, but she had not had a follow-up, right? So she contacted the school district because she needed some follow-up services for something. And she told me that it was incredible. She was welcomed, her child received whatever follow-up services that she needed. They contacted her right away. I mean, she'd had nothing but wonderful things to say about the school district. And she just wanted to thank you all for that. So I'm extending her thanks to you, everyone here who has really, really come a long way with the homeschool community. So that's really wonderful. The strategic plan, I'm looking forward to the feedback for the annual review of it. I would like to also mention that the strategic plan, Dr. Moore, I would ask that you solicit and get feedback from board members on that, because the board had been and ought to be a part of that process rather than only district leader and then you present to us. So on the front end of it, if we can kind of collaborate and then present it, or find some other way to get board members in that, rather than it just coming to us on the tail end, and then we receive some notice, oh, well, it was already created, and so to change X, Y, Z at this point might not be recommended. So maybe on the front end of it, we can work out some communications on where you all are in the process before presenting it to us. That makes any sense? The STARS Extended, I have one question here with the STARS Extended Day program. I'm really, really excited about that. What I don't want, though, is for it to be another classroom experience, because kids have been in school all day long, and I don't know where they are. I don't know if is it going to be, is the goal or the vision there to be more of like tutoring or tutoring and play, or how is that going to work?
Through the chair, so the goal is to provide each student with an opportunity for what meets their needs the best. So in some cases, yes, there would be tutoring. In some cases, it is, an additional opportunity for, math or reading support, but not in every instance, right? So not obligatory, though there's a lot of enriching activities at each one of the sites as well. The students would have the opportunity to participate in. So once again, it's just making sure that we're not doing a one-size-fits-none approach to that extended day.
So one of the on the path screen for the college and career planning, there was a section there that mentioned after-school open labs. Are those after-school open labs going to be a part of the extended day program, or are those going to be separate?
They're separate. Actually, our path advisors came up with that idea. They wanted to provide open lab for students who need additional hours to participate, say they need a concordant score for math or for reading or any of the...
I'm just saying fast to completion.
Okay. Any of those opportunities, Ingenuity, if they need to make up a course, just providing an opportunity for those kids to get also that support with the school counselor as well, to show them, hey, you're missing this course, we need to make sure that you're in this, and monitoring, not just putting them on a course, but they're there with them. So that's what that open lab is for.
I think that's wonderful. I love it. I'm excited. Thank you all so much.
Again, a very special thank you to Dr. Moore, the staff, and our partners. It's really, really nice to keep the focus on where we need to keep the focus. The Inclusion Playground, Mr. Michael, I was able to see that video at the last ESC Parent Advisory, and it was so, so good, and listen to the parents and how excited they were. So kudos for going forward on this. I think it will be really special. An 8-period day really changes the game for our students. When I was there, we had 6 credits. You had to have 24 credits, so if you failed one semester, it was hard. And then you lost the elective, and a lot of times you were put in the reading class. So I think that's going to be a game changer. I'm not sure how many of our teachers will do 7 out of 8 or 8 out of 8, but the PD will be so very important, and I thank you for that, because going to the block schedule without support is tough. You've got to stay on top of that. The 90/9 for the Algebra EOC is crucial, and I really like that goal. And as a former middle school principal, they were tracked coming into 6th grade. So getting that down to 5th grade or wherever we go will just be so very important, and it will help our students. Mr. Seymour, the Climate Task Force, I think is crucial. I thank you for making that one of your focus areas, and bringing everybody together to see what we need to do for our students, the Good Cause Committee, so that we determine instead of the FHSAA about the transfers, because we know our students and what some of the issues may be. So I appreciate that. Ms. Hofer, Ms. Soot, and Dr. Soot and Ms. Oak, that box you're creating, you don't know how many times people come in and say, okay, where do I get this? Where do I get that? So that will be very, very helpful. And the recruiting and reaching out to people individually has been excellent. And the negotiations with the IRCEA have been good, and we're starting with the CWA now, so hopefully that will move forward. The campus life is going to be cool as far as everybody being informed on everything. And I think at last, when I think with Mr. Bass with the IDs in a high school campus, you know, where I was, we had anywhere from 1,800 to 2,000 students on a yearly basis. And you get to know your faces, but those ninth graders take a little bit of time. But being able to identify, I think, is crucial. You know, we've been pretty lucky in Indian River County, and I think this will be helpful with our students and our staff for safety. So thank you for doing that.
Okay. Well, there's not much I can add. One thing, a couple of things. One, I would call it, Mr. Fagan, zero-based budgeting. The manner in which you used a lot of words to describe basically every year you got to justify every expenditure. And if it's not meeting the goal, cost-benefit analysis, you either get rid of it or figure out ways to improve so that you do reach and that the cost of delivering it is worth the outcomes that you hope for. The focus on math, that's probably the biggest thing for me. And, you know, there's been plenty of conversations. The Learning Alliance has made a tremendous difference in the district over the last many years. They've been at it now 11, 12 years. I'm not sure exactly. I saw Barbara here earlier. She may have left. But we had actually sort of an off-the-cuff discussion with one member of their board, I did, who happens to be a friend of mine, a few weeks ago. And the result was a breakfast we had last Friday with the Learning Alliance, with Ray Oglethorpe and Liz Remington, Barbara, and one of the board members, and Rick, Mr. Meyer, Dr. Moore, Cindy Emerson was there, and I guess myself. And there's some interest in at least helping develop something as early as possible, in the early grades as possible, focused on math. It would really be a forerunner to what Mr. Meyer just outlined. I think that's a great opportunity for the Learning Alliance at least be interested in having a discussion. Their concern and is that they don't dilute what they're already doing, but on the other hand, they've developed a process, call it, for getting these kids as early as possible. And, you know, everything I'm told and have heard is really you've got to get started as early as possible with at least understanding the language of mathematics. It can be something very simple. It can be in kindergarten, first grade, but by fourth grade, you really got to be on a path. And so middle school is the key, but you got to get people started early. So wherever this leads, you've got a good foundation laid out there. And if we can learn from the Learning Alliance or anyone else that's got some way to get started even earlier, better yet. And just a quick comment about the foundation. As you all recall, early on, there was some concern expressed in the community from other not-for-profits that yet another not-for-profit would be competing, perhaps diluting the effect of those already in existence. We're well aware of the Educational Foundation. They've been focused more on what they think are important, not that those things are not important, and more programmatic in nature, as opposed to some of the discussions we've had around capital-related projects, maybe endowing certain key positions in the district to enable us to attract the best and the brightest to fill a specific need. I know I had a discussion with Doug Herron and actually with their board several months ago. But Dr. Moore and Ms. Emerson have been involved with them. I believe you're both now on that board, or you are not yet. But that's one of the goals is to be able to have that organization that has a structure in place that has been successful in focusing on what they've chosen to focus on, to shift their efforts, not completely, but in part to priorities of the district. And I'm told that there are several of their board members that thought this is what they ought to be doing all along. So I think that rather than creating, a competitive foundation, the discussions that have taken place, and I'm sure will continue to take place with the goal of bringing it back to us ASAP, so that you can plan for a rollout when school opens in the fall, and the community understands what the dual focus, let's say, of the foundation is going to be. That foundation is going to be going forward, and with some specific, prioritization of capital projects, let's say, the kinds of funding that has not perhaps been done in the past, but is a need. I think the sooner we formally approve whatever it is we're going to formally approve, the better, so that we can prepare for a rollout. But I think this is absolutely the way to go, and if it doesn't work, we'll go back to Plan A. So I think the work, Ms. Emerson, that you've done on that is really terrific. I don't know how you find the time to do all the things that you do. It's the display out there this morning, and it's the Junior Achievement and Entrepreneurship Initiative, which is a whole nother topic you didn't even mention.
Energizer Bunny.
The Energizer Bunny, yeah, whatever, but nice job on the part of everybody. So I'll turn it back to you, Dr. Moore.
That is it, and I would hope the board takes pride in this innovation. Leading in this environment is not easy to do, but with your continued support, I think the system is continuing to grow in a very, very aggressive, strategic way, and which is going to create a pathway to creating what is a world-class educational system. So very, very thankful for your leadership and support as we create the pathway forward as we prepare for the 21-22 school year. So we're very excited to present these items, and once again, just very, very thankful for the individuals who make up the school district of Indian River County who really bring this to life. Just so proud. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure if everybody was able to ask all their questions. I know I had a couple because I just asked 5 and stopped. Is it okay if we?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Value-based spending, thank you. A concern I have is, when a school is asking to spend money and they submit that PO, and your wonderful team looks at it and says yay or nay on that PO, are schools now, is there a part of that PO form that they're aligning to the strategic plan? Because that's something we have gone over and over and over again asking of you. So are you asking that of the schools?
Yes, the trail, yes, ma'am, through the chair.
Okay,
Anything
so-
they're buying should align with the strategic plan, yes, ma'am.
So they're aligning it to their SIP too?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, because I think that's where we're going to see spending nipped, because every little nickel and dime adds up, and it's important that we put it in the right places where it's being spent. I hated to see spending happening in schools, and I heard this over and over again, well, I still have money, I got to spend it. Well, no, necessarily you don't have to spend it unless you're spending it on the students for that year and on something that's going to help with your strategic plan or your SIP, so I appreciate that. The Be Positive, Mr. Seymour, on the Be Positive, is this going to take away the campus dollars that people give out for, like I had B-Bucks on my campus where we would give out a little dollar and it had a bumblebee on it if the child did something for the PBS program, and then they kept their dollars. Will that keep that? I thought it was you, but sorry. Okay.
Just Seymour said.
I had Eric next to that, so.
So a lot of schools
Wait,
use
wait, Eric, what do you think?
What? A lot of schools use very similar programs, like Class Dojo,
Right.
Which goes outside of our network in a lot of ways, is innovative, but this allows us to do it inside of our own system, where it is protected. It allows from a parent's perspective, the same system being used at multiple schools, the opportunity to give incentives throughout the entire school day. So it doesn't necessarily replace any particular PBS program. It enhances that opportunity, and it pulls parents and families in So if you have a positive reinforcement, typical example is if you earn X number of points, you get to go to the school store. Now that Mr. Fagan's team is going to fund that with the fundraising, you can use that program to say, okay, X number of rewards or points were established within that system in focus.
So we're not taking away the dollars then at the store, at the school level?
No. If
I was
anything-
kind of excited that we were, because you don't maybe you do know how hard it is that when kids lose their money, or there's actually a black market out there for money. It's amazing what kids can do at a young age.
I'm not going to say they're not going to do that, because that would be very innovative, but now they're going to have to come up with a way to do the QR reader and put it into focus, so we may have to do another app for that, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, got it. And then, this is Mr. Seymour's, the good cause. How will those students be supported and monitored later? So you said that there's a team that gets together and looks at those athletes, right? That may
Yes.
not have been able to participate for another reason. So once you've allowed them to participate and play, how will they be supported, and how will it be monitored that they're continuing to work in the right direction?
To the chair, of our cases that we have had, those individuals were very, very successful academically and have done a wonderful job this year. I think one of those individuals may be graduating in December with an AA degree. The other student who transferred into our district, the special situation that he had coming in, not knowing exactly where he was going to be living, and at that time didn't have a home. This individual is also doing very well academically. But when you talk about students who are going to be a part of that process, that have issues and other issues, we put the onus back on the coaches to make sure that students are monitored and to continue that dialogue with the teacher for consistency.
Okay, so there is a monitoring in place?
Yes.
That was my question. And the last one I have is about where's my ride? I believe that's you, Mr. Bass. The swiping on and off, there have been some concerns about tracking children, I get that. But this is more of a tracking that they're on the bus, they swipe it when they get on the bus, then they're being tracked while they're on the bus, and as soon as they swipe when they get off the bus, they're no longer tracked, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I know we've kind of worked around that, but I want to specifically state that. But you're saying there's no opt-out. So what if, and this is a safety issue, I get this, and if, I remember being a parent and wondering where the heck my child was for 2 hours, and nobody could tell me, and I call transportation, the number's busy and busy and busy. So I get that. I think this is going to be a huge lifesaver for parents. You also talked about the safety issue of we know who's on campus. How about all those other kids that walk on campus and get dropped off by cars? I know that we have people monitoring campuses, who's walking in, but is there any sort of swiping to get on the campus, or is that not happening?
Through the chair, no, ma'am. There's no plan for that. You have staff assigned to your different areas that kids walk on. Campus, whether it be car pickup or car drop off, or walking to campus, or riding their bicycle to campus. The theory is they would have their ID badge on. So as they're coming on, you see they belong here.
Because you brought up the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas case, and yes, I have seen those videos, and it's hard to see, but I will say that student walked on that campus.
Through an open gate that should have been locked with a campus monitor 300 yards away on a golf cart.
Yes, and that is why I get so concerned when I look at those reviews every year about prop doors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I say to you every year, what are you doing about the prop doors and those administrators, and what conversations are we having? Because we can secure like crazy, and we can put in all this money to make sure that somebody's walking through the front office correctly, but then somebody props a door open in the back. So that's, of course, very concerning to me, because we can do all these wonderful things and spend money that way, but yet what are we doing to double check that doors are not continuously staying propped open?
And I think a big piece of that answer is when we walk on campuses, whether it's cabinet or senior staff, you're always evaluating, and you're not only going to look at instruction, but on your way to a classroom, you're the operationals leader, so you're going to look and say, are our doors open? When I came on campus, and I've done this while I've been here and as well in my other district, let me see if I can go in a back way. Let me see if gates are open. You have to be able to, on a daily basis, put those systems in place, because high schools and middle schools that are large as are very complex, and there's a lot of moving parts. But if we don't kind of inspect what we expect, we're going to have breaches in security. So it's a matter of always making sure we're looking to reinforce that behavior at school sites from administrators, so they are in fact looking as well.
And you mentioned secret shoppers. Why not have our SRO be a secret, inspector of that?
Mm-hmm.
They're on our campuses.
And that is part of their rotation. That is.
Okay.
Through the chair, I do a little bit of that myself.
Yeah.
I've done it.
Yes.
I've walked through a back door and walked right in the school and said, why? Why can I do this?
Did we catch you on a bike, though, one time? Almost?
You did catch me on a bike one time.
I was going to bring that up, Dr. Moore, but I'm glad you did.
I rode my bike. I'll right up there. I rode it to Citrus, and I watched the playground. And I did that because I got a call from a parent that we weren't, following the school board policy about masks outside. And so as a board member, I can go to a campus anytime I want and look and see whether or not policies are being followed, which I have done in another school. So I thank the SRO for coming up to me and approaching this woman on a bike, staring at the he knew who I was, because he said they knew I had done it before and were looking out for that crazy lady on the bike. So, but that's a point, is, we're talking about safety, we're talking about putting things in place and spending money on that, where we still have other things that we need to continuously be diligent on. So thank you.
Mrs. Rosario.
Thank you. I wanted to talk about the IDs. I know that question was raised as to whether students can opt out of it. I would support you in saying that in this particular case, they should not be optional. I had a parent reach out and ask why we are approving something that is tracking students. And my response was, we are not tracking students, we're tracking buses. And I think that kind of helped understand the process of this new card system, Z-Pass. I don't know if at some point it might be prudent of us, if there is a need, to create a policy that just says all students must have a student ID through Z-Pass on campus. If it's as simple as that, that might be a way to avert the questions of opting out. But collectively, we all agree that these ID cards are not just for students entering. They are certainly for overall safety and security. They are for auditing purposes. They're for food services and library services. So there's a multi-purpose goal there for these cards. So if that's what we need to do, then I would support a policy on that if we need to. The district foundation, I think, is a great point that Mr. Barefoot mentions as we, but this isn't, I don't believe that this is the forum to have that discussion. So I just wanted to reiterate, moving forward, I'd love to have that preserved time to discuss it. And then lastly, Dr. Moore, it would be nice if we could ask you, I don't know if other board members have follow-up questions, but it would be nice if you could take a little bit of time to kind of, since we were talking about our strategic plan and our finances, last year we were given your word, and Mr. Fagan's word, that this year our budget presented to us will actually be able to align. We will see the alignment of the strategic plan in the formatting of the budget. And last year, we were told it was too soon, since you had just joined in creating that. Are we going to see that moving forward in this new budget process?
Through the chair, yes, ma'am. It may not be as to every item within the budget, But at a high level, yes, it will show all the alignment to the strategic plans.
Okay. And then in creating these initiatives, I know that you, in your introduction, you mentioned how everyone got together in it, but could you talk a little bit more about how each of these initiatives were, maybe not go into detail of each of them, but how all of the initiatives were created, thought through, how all of that in conversation aligned with our strategic plan, whereas something may have been suggested and then may have been, you know, I don't know, said not now because that doesn't align with the strategic plan. Like, where does our strategic plan fall in alignment with all of these new initiatives?
So the strategic plan lays out the pathway forward through our 5 areas of focus. And each cabinet member has specific areas and one or multiple areas of focus. On a weekly basis, we problem solve. So the initiatives, in looking at the data that we've defined within each of the focus areas, we're problem solving around what are the barriers or what are the obstacles that impede our ability to obtain the desired results. So nothing reactionary in terms of, well, let's just create some things, or this looks really easy to do, let's do it. But a 6-month process on what are the barriers and obstacles that we really need to address, and then defining what initiatives or what system or structure can we create that has the highest influence on removing as many barriers as possible. So as we move through the year, you know, we're listening to the system. We're listening to the struggles that we're having and obtaining the goals that we want to achieve for ourselves. And then really doing a deep analysis on what things can we do really to knock out or eliminate as many barriers as possible. So through that process, we've identified these 37, and as I said, these are just a few. There's a number around culture, there's a number around empowering administrators, there's a number around, you know, what we did this year was really a very deep focus on developing true instructional leaders, understanding what good instruction looks like, and understanding the systems that need to be available at school sites to create meaningful standards-aligned instruction at each particular school. It's not a district-driven process, but a process that we support from a district to ensure that that's happening at school sites. Some of the common planning, that's a big initiative, not necessarily in here, but we're going to have common planning at all of our schools, maximizing planning both at the elementary space as well as the secondary space to give teachers the time that they need really to plan the quality and depth of lessons that move children. So it's a continuous process. I've kind of keep a running track throughout the year of, hey, this could be a new initiative, this could be initiative, this could be initiative. And that little sheet begins with problems, problems, problems. And then over the course of the year, we define what are the solutions to these problems, or what are our biggest problems, and what are possible solutions. So that's a very organic way of how we create these initiatives.
Thank you.
Anything else, Dr. Schiff or Dr. Jones?
Couple quick things. Mr. Meyer, sir, when you talked about the early on the rock the block, which, and you somewhat addressed my concern, and I see the reasons for doing this. I've also heard concerns about the long schedule and the long classes for students in classes they're not engaged, they're not interested in. It's really hard to sit through. And you addressed some of that as I was thinking this by talking about small group work and individualized work. But how, I guess my concern, because I've heard concerns about this from both students and teachers, how are we going to make sure that those, what are now 80 or 90-minute blocks, really do keep attention in a world, and I'll add, in a digital world where students are used to YouTube 3-minute videos and everything moving really quickly, and it's particularly hard to get people to focus in ways that we as adults may be used to and may have grown up with and still struggle with. Can you speak a little bit about how we're going to ensure that we don't lose kids and lose their attention and focus through some of those long periods?
Through the chair, absolutely. It's continuous improvement. One of the things that we are trying to dispel the myth of is that our sixth graders can't do that. I mean, keep in mind, most of our elementary school students come from an environment where they're staying in a class all day, right? And so it's the changing of the periods for them that's different, not that they can sit there for two periods now in a row. They've been doing that for the majority of their educational career. The shift is in the thinking of the adults. The shift is in the thinking of the lesson planning. And we've added coaches this year. We've got examples of excellence. I can think of every single secondary school in the district where we got to at the end of last year by the third impact review. We were seeing examples of excellence in certain classrooms. Not every classroom, clearly. And there were some COVID limitations there with the small groups and and getting kids close together and transitioning and moving around. But I can think of at least a number of classrooms at every secondary school where we did see instances of success, and so that's what we're wanting to demonstrate to the other teachers who may be a little more uncomfortable with the small groups, with some of the rotations within the class period, to get them to feel more successful with that. Excuse me, and to see the benefit of the opportunity that provides for differentiation. I do believe that all of our teachers want to see their students be as successful as possible, and I do believe that once we provide them with the professional development that will enable them to differentiate their lessons for each of their learners and where they need, that they're going to buy into that. It's just a different mindset, I think, from some of our secondary teachers that are more used to the stand and deliver for 50 minutes and then see you later. New group of kids, stand and deliver for 50 minutes, see you later. It's a change in instructional practice, which is going to benefit the kids, but it will require the coaching. But we've upskilled our coaches this year. We've provided them the training. They're doing that now throughout the summer. Our pacing guides, one of the great things about the curriculum review that we're going to go through now for the next 4 years, both at ELA, math, science, or socialized in science, is going to give us an opportunity to change the pacing guide so that as our curriculum specialists are bringing teachers in, right, we're not just doing this at the district level, we're getting teacher leaders to come in the summer and develop new pacing guides that, if you are a brand new teacher to Indian River, you're going to be provided the resources and a shell of what a 90-minute lesson looks like, so you're not having to create this all by yourself. So very excited about where we're going, very excited how this is going to keep us on track to make sure we're getting through all the standards and all the curriculum, using the time wisely. But yeah, it's not a light switch, right? It's not something that we just click and do. It's work that we're going to have to continuously improve through the walkthroughs that the principals are doing, listening to the students. I mean, the students are telling the truth, right? I mean, Mr. Meyer's class is so boring in there. Let's do something about that. Let's make sure the coach is working with that teacher to make sure that we're staying on task and providing great instruction. So, like I said, work to be done, but our teachers have demonstrated that they can do it because I've seen it. So.
Thank you. I think when I stepped out of the room for a minute, Mrs. Berenborg mentioned, and I just want to clarify about board members getting invitation and notification about professional development sessions. Was that what
We
you
just
had?
got them.
We did?
Yeah.
Oh, got it, okay. How quickly that got handled. I had the same question. There are many things I find out about after the fact, and then am in my head going, darn it, I wish I'd known about that. I would have loved to have attended and participated to see what that was all about. So thank you for whoever sent that out that I didn't see. Kristen, maybe, Nancy. Another thing that was mentioned, and I want to highlight this because I don't think that we've spoken about it as much publicly. And it connects both to the budgeting process, but as well to the overall management and administration of the district, and that's the decentralization to schools. When you talked about the budget process, and in effect decentralizing that to school-level decision-making, where principals will have direct access to determining their budget, how to use it, how it relates to the strategic plan. And I know Dr. Moore has talked a lot privately, if not publicly, about shifting the onus for significant decision-making in a school to those who are most local to the school, to those who have who are closest to where those decisions need to be made, and that's principals and assistant principals on that campus. So what I hear in your description of the budget process is supporting that the decision should be made by those who have the closest engagement with what that campus needs, as a form of that what I'm characterizing as decentralized decision-making. I don't know if that's how you two would put it. But I want to highlight that as also a shift and departure from some of the ways that things have been done in the past. And
Process, and also as an example with SAM. SAM is a structured document. However, not all schools are the same, and not all SAM will fit every school. So you have a certain situation in some schools who will come in and say, well, you've allocated me A, but based upon my school needs, I really need B. I'd like to swap A for B. Decentralized management. I've given you a structure at which we allocate resources, but every school can be somewhat unique, and we may have to shift some of those positions around. That's an example of where they're making those decisions, coming back to us, making sure there's nothing uniquely disadvantageous to that, and that's approved.
yeah, thank you. Lastly, I think is back to the Power BI system, because I think something that you talked about on that was about allowing access so that people, and I'm not exactly sure who the people are, could have direct access to data to help support decision-making or to understand trends on campus. And I'm wondering, in particular, who has access to that? Is it administrators? Is it teachers? Would it be school board members, for example? How does that work?
It's role specific, so district administrators, instructional coaches, and above. I think what Power BI does is pulls a lot of data from multiple sources together. It gives us a deeper understanding as to how our implementation is working in comparison to other schools or other grade levels. So it allows us from a district perspective or school site perspective really to have a deeper understanding as to how effective we are doing in our implementation of our continuous improvement plan in comparison to others, and then really problem solve why are we not moving as fast as we possibly can, why is this particular grade level lagging behind others. So it just takes all of the information throughout the entire district and pulls it into one location. Now there are certain tools that we use for teachers which gives more granular data in terms of what students are experiencing in their particular classroom. So it varies from dashboard to dashboard is probably the best way of saying it.
Is that something it would be possible or appropriate without access to the raw data, without access to any way of manipulating the raw data, I should say? Would that be something that school board members would it be appropriate for school board members, could we have access to that? So if we have a question about something, we could just go look it up without having to go through 19 channels.
And we're going to bring a presentation as well as a training, whether it's, I know some have met with Dr. McMahon individually, which is a good possible pathway forward, really to sit and say, okay, let me understand, A, how the tool works, but B, how it accelerates thinking and understanding. So there's no issues with that.
Yeah, because as a kind of data wonk myself, I'd love to be able to play around with some of that.
You said it, not me. No.
I did. I did. I think that's it. I think that covers most of it.
All right, how about a 15, 14-minute recess? We'll reconvene at 11. In the meeting at 11:03, and I think the only topic we have left is the board protocols, and I've asked Doc Jones if she would sort of facilitate this for starters, and then we can all contribute on the homework assignment, which I'm probably somewhat deficient on, but nonetheless, not without opinions, however. So go ahead.
Well, just,
Dr.
I
Jones.
think we talked about this with FSBA. As new members come in to the board, obviously, we have a lot of homework to do, reading policy and every other notebook that's given to us, and it's a lot of detail, and I felt pretty knowledgeable because I had a little understanding of the foundations and so forth, but it's still challenging. So I just gave some ideas I just took from FSBA, some other states, and put them together. And I know that some of you say, oh, I don't like this one and this one, and I didn't either. Some of them I just put down here, and I knew they wouldn't be accepted, but that some boards across the nation have them. So I just think maybe, obviously you've seen mine, so maybe we could just bring together what other people have brought and maybe get going, at least with our categories as far as, and again, I took these from other groups, you know, our expectations of our roles and authority, superintendent role, meeting expectations, public participation. I think it is crucial, though, that we develop something. I think it was Ms. Rosario said last time, some of these are in policy, and maybe we need to separate that, but just having that 1-2-page sheet on what is expected of a board member and how we handle ourselves within meetings and with citizen input, I think is important for our community to know about that. So maybe, Mr. Barefoot, we could just have everyone else share. I don't know if they sent it on email, but some other ideas for protocols, and with the superintendent, with his experience maybe in Miami, helping us get rolling on this.
Okay. Yes.
One thing that I think we should keep in mind is what Suzanne sent us, which is the statute.
Yes.
So I had copies made for everybody.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yep.
That's good, too.
Because I think it's important, and there's an extra copy. So I think it's important that we really use this as our focal point, because this says exactly what we have been asked to do by law. And if you'll notice number 4, that's subsection 4 on, just for the record, Florida Statute 286.0114, public meetings. So if you'll look at subsection 4, A, B, C, D are very important. I think the one we're focusing on is, well, all of these, but I think that C is really, really important that we look at that, because it says prescribed procedures or forms for an individual to use in order to inform the board or commission of a desire to be heard. And we have revamped our form recently, and I did look at some of the others that you had sent to us, and I also looked at Sumter, because that was kind of an interesting one that came up. But they have, one of the things I saw in there is what this specifically says. It's their desire to be heard and to indicate his or her support, opposition, or neutrality on a proposition. Sometimes people are not comfortable with getting up and speaking, but they do want to be heard as far as their opinion. So they could fill out the form saying that basically I don't want to speak, but I do support or do not support this particular item on the action plan or consent. So I think that might be something that we might want to look at as an option for that. And indicate his or her designation of representatives to speak for him or her on the group. And we do have that kind of in our policy, but I don't think it's always taken advantage of, because when people are coming here and they're speaking on the same topic over and over and over and over again, they came to here to speak. And so they're not usually going to relinquish their time to say, I just need to have this person speak on my behalf. So I'm not quite sure how we would handle that. But I think if you look at the statute and exactly what it says, that it does say, which is kind of interesting, that we have to prescribe the procedure. So if you look at B, it says prescribe procedures for allowing representatives of groups or factions at a proposition to address the board rather than all members. So maybe we can identify a procedure for that to help the public understand that they don't have to each get up there, that they can show their support for somebody speaking on behalf of the same topic they want to speak on. That's one thing that we can do. So fixing the form a little bit, or jiving the form, I think might help. Then designate a specific time period for public comment. We have put in 3 minutes for each person to speak, but there are some, if you looked at all the others, that have a total time limit. You know, that the public can speak for 2.5 hours, and after that, it's cut off. So whoever's first for 2.5 hours, it's done. Or some places, it was only a half hour or an hour, which, you know, I don't know if that's a possibility. I don't think that should be, I don't think that's exactly appropriate. So on here, if you keep looking down, you know, it's basically tells us what we have to provide. We have to allow somebody to speak on something that we're going to have action on that night ahead of the action. But if it's not on our agenda, it doesn't necessarily mean they have to speak before that item, because the item's not there. There are some districts, and I know St. Lucie went to this a while ago, that if you're speaking to an action item, there's a spot to speak at the beginning of the meeting, and then at the end of the meeting is when there's a spot to speak about something that's not on the agenda. So I have seen that as well as an option for boards. So that's just something I think that we should keep this in mind.
Focus, yeah.
So we've sort of mentioned that before, the separating action items from just general commentary. I guess, you know, the people are going to show up. People are not particularly well informed. And I'm sure that the people that come to speak in some cases are not all that well informed. And so how do you communicate to them if you're coming and you want to speak on whatever it is, but it's not an action item that night, you're going to have to wait till the end of the business portion of the meeting. And I mean, I'd love to figure out a way to do that, because it would certainly enable us to get to the things that have to be acted upon. And it's not that we don't want to hear what these people have to say, but I don't think this particular board has been overwhelmed necessarily with long meetings, but there were a couple last summer, fall, where it was unbelievable. The one where you had to continue it till Thursday morning at 7 o'clock or something. And I don't know what the best process is. Maybe you have a suggestion, Dr. Moore, to begin to, we can cherry pick some of these things and have them create our own policy from which the form, that can email, no email, you know, on and on and on, can evolve, but we almost have to create the policy, and then we create how we implement it and inform the public prior to the meetings.
Are there forms back there right now? Maybe we can each have a copy of that. And the only reason why I say that is because I think that's the key, is to make the form checkbox related or something. You know, I wish to speak to that action item and what the action item is. That way you can definitely tell whether or not they're speaking to an action item or non-action item.
Yes.
Your microphone.
Do you need me to repeat all that? Just want to know how we're going to begin today. Are we going to use the remaining of our time just to discuss the speaker form and board meeting public comment policy? And then at another time, come back to the broader issues of board protocols? We need direction, because otherwise we're going to be all over the place today. So we need to I need to know, okay, our focus here today is to discuss board meetings and board protocol at board meetings, with citizen input or not?
There's at least, well, there's two big buckets. There's one, how do we conduct ourselves, whether, particularly at a business meeting, this is more discussion-like.
Right.
And as long as people are respectful, like today, you had a long list, but Dr. Schiff stopped after she got through whatever percentage and then came back again. The business meeting part of it is, again, the practice has been, and I don't know whether it's a policy or not, because, I'm new to it, but the practice has been, unless there's litigation involved, that anybody up here can address after the citizen input has been made. You can address points made. I think, Mrs. Berenberg, you did at the last meeting. Several of you have followed up. So and so I think if we think about, how do we want our meetings and what are the protocols, and then how do we want to deal with the public? It's two separate.
Exactly. That's
Two
why I
separate
was
issues.
asking, because I think that this, as important as this is not going to begin us discussing our board protocol. This is specifically talking about citizen input at our meetings, which is an important thing for us to discuss if we're going to change the policy and the procedure moving forward. But that's not going to move us forward in the discussion for which we have gathered here today. So we have gathered here today to discuss board protocol. And we have been trying to gather to discuss board protocol since I was elected. And every time we meet, it's a different topic, or we get interrupted, or there's a presentation. We're never actually getting anywhere. This conversation has, I wish that we could meet to discuss this and this alone, and everything else just say, okay, that's not board protocol right this second. Right now, our focus for board protocol should be on board staff communication, board roles and authority, standards of ethical conduct, our onboarding packet and orientation of new board members, for example, notice of emails or notice of other communications, things like that.
I
don't
I'm
know
sorry.
where, go ahead.
I don't know if anybody, Dr. Schiff, or if you sent Nancy any other ideas, but I would suggest we look at the main topics, those in bold, and see if these are the things we want to look at. Now, the little bullets beneath them, we can look at that later, but this came up several times when I was looking at protocol, these kind of leaders, if you
What are
will.
you referring to?
The sheet I
Email.
the email. Like board member roles, superintendent role, board chair, board meetings, meeting expectations, public participation, information sharing, and then professional development. And several protocols that I reviewed, these kept coming up. So, Dr. Moore in Miami, was there anything as far as your main areas that you looked at for protocol? Do these kind of fit it, or?
I think the answer to your question is, yeah, they're very, very much aligned.
They're aligned with that?
I'd like to add to that, because I think that it's important for us to make sure that we add to some of the items that Dr. Jones is discussing. I'd like us to add board staff communication.
Yep.
I'd like us to add, and if we want to combine some of these areas, that's fine too, but I think board staff communication is important. Standards of ethical conduct, I think, are important, and I didn't see that, Dr. Jones, in your email. Onboarding packets or orientation, board orientation, I think needs to be added. And when we get to our board meetings, I'd like us to add a bullet there called notice of meetings. And then we can, once we get to what that is, we can talk more about that.
Yeah, I think if we start with the general areas, it might just give us some ideas when we look at the ones even that we have here, cross them out. Or somebody could look at these areas and come back with, oh, this would fit under public participation, just to get us going.
Yeah.
And the onboarding as a new school board member is crucial. So So maybe we can look at that, Mr. Barefoot, saying, is this an area we want to have? Don't even look at all the subsets, but is this the area we want to have? Then we can all look at that and say, hey, I've got something that would fit there, or this doesn't fit. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I'm looking at it just in the order in which board member roles authority. There's nothing there that anyone here should be in disagreement with.
That one's pretty
And
good.
is there anything that's not there that should be added? So that's question number one.
Yeah, we don't want to get in too much detail on protocol because it's in policy, you know?
Right.
Go ahead, yeah, Dr. Schiff?
Without needing to nitpick, and by the way, some time ago, Nancy, Peggy, I can't remember where, but I have the email up here, sent us samples of board protocols.
Yes, yes.
And I have those up on my computer.
Yes.
Some of those are good, and some of those we talked about before in the previous board. Oh, mic is not on. Is that always on? Sorry. Okay. Now mic's on. We've talked about before and have never come to resolution on. But some of those are really quite straightforward. Focused use of meeting time, orderly procedure. And then there's a sample school board operating protocol, don't spring surprises, communication, follow the chain of command, et cetera, which are really quite straightforward. What I think is more problematic, wrong word, what requires more attention is the nuances. So for example, when we say we are a policy-setting board and the day-to-day operation of the district is the responsibility of the superintendent and his staff, yes, of course we all agree with that. But the line at which it slides from board governance to board management of the superintendent and his staff, I think is something that we are not always clear on. And I think it's nuances like that that give us more pause or challenge than the broad brushstrokes of,
So
yes, we all know that.
Give an example.
Sure. Maybe sure.
I have one, if you're struggling whenever you're.
I think, for example, if the Give me 1 second for a minute. 1 second for a second.
And I think that's one of the most important ones.
I really think it is. And when the superintendent comes to us, as he just did, for example, with 37 new initiatives that he and his staff have worked really hard on and really closely on. And of course, it is to present to us, and we as the board approve the work that they've done and get to ask questions about it and get to work both individually and as a body to support the superintendent in crafting those initiatives. But it's his job to do those, not ours. And if we strenuously object to something, I don't have an example right now.
ID cards.
ID cards. If we strenuously object to ID cards, number one, first, that should happen in a private meeting where we should have expressed that. Number two, if there is something that we want to when we communicate in private meetings, we don't have the benefit of collaborative discussion, and the purpose of this body is collaborative discussion and collaborative decision-making, or governance, I should say, not. Those conversations should first have happened privately so that when it comes before the board, they've been taken into consideration. If we still have concerns, of course we should be asking those, but I personally don't think that at a meeting like this, we should be saying, well, you need to tweak item 3A to make it say X instead of Y. So, I don't think that's our job. And I think we need distinctions about that, particularly not only moving forward as this board, but for when new board members come on. That is a steep uphill climb often for people to understand exactly what this role is. A part of that is also, and this is a bit of a digression, But to really always be clear that the purpose of our business meetings, and we all know this, but I don't think this is always well communicated and clear in the public eye. The purpose of our board business meetings is to do the business of the board.
Absolutely.
In the sunshine.
That's correct.
It's not to engage in dialogue. It is to listen. We listen to the community, but the primary function of our board, of our business meetings is to do the business. That is informed by public concern and comment, of course, but it is not, I think it is often misconstrued that that's a time we go back and forth and have open dialogue, as we might in, say, a town hall meeting, and that's not the purpose of the business meeting. So, yeah.
I just still think the first, what you said, Dr. Schiff, is so important, but I think the first bullet, and again, I'm just looking at the main areas. If we can agree on these main areas, then we can all go back and look at them, tweak them, change them, but I think it says very clearly that the day-to-day operation of the district is the responsibility of the superintendent and his or her staff. And then the nuances, as you said, we can continue to discuss, but again, that should be privately. It should be not a surprise. You know, sometimes I've said something will come to me at the last minute and I should have asked it before. I never want to do a catch-22, but could we at least just look at the main areas and see if we're okay on those main bold areas? And then maybe, like Ms. Rosario said, add a board staff communication.
Right.
That's crucial, especially now. And then the ethical conduct, which they talk about in policy, but maybe we could be a little bit more in the bullets. And then the board orientation. So just looking at those main areas, because we've got about 30 minutes.
Yeah, so may I respond?
Yeah, sure.
So with the first bullet, the second part of that first bullet says the day-to-day operation of the district is the responsibility of the superintendent and his staff. I would add that to the role of superintendent. I would not keep that under the board roles. Instead, I found this verbiage, and I can't remember where I found it, but it's a combination from some of the handouts that were here from what statute and policy reads, and this is what it says. And it might take the place of the first bullet if you all agree. The board is responsible for the organization and control of the public schools in SDIRC and is empowered to determine the policies, that's where the policies come in, necessary for the effective operation and the general improvement of the school system.
Where did you get that, Jack? Where was that?
Statute and our policy.
Okay.
It was a combination of our policy and
What statute number?
our statute
Is
is
it 286, the one I handed you?
1001.42, which are the powers and duties of the school district.
Yeah, I have that one
School
written
board,
down,
and
too.
then our policy, that might have come also from our policy 0121.
Right, and it actually requires us to enforce our school board rules. And I think that's an important part to put into the protocol.
Say that again?
Part of that is that it enforces us, it requires us to enforce our school board rules and state school board rules. So
Okay,
I think
so-
that's an important part to put into the protocol because,
That would be under.
Mr. Chair,
How do you want to word that?
that's actually your responsibility, is to make sure that we're enforcing our own rules
And policies.
and policies
Yeah.
and the state rules.
So if we replace that first bullet with what I said and add a bullet, what you just said, Terry, how would you want it to read?
So if it says, take out the day-to-day, move that to the superintendent's part?
Right?
Yep.
Okay, so we are policy setting board and will enforce.
Well, what about what I said?
Well, it's the statute, what you said, right?
Yeah, but if we keep that, what I said as a bullet, and add your
Say
bullet.
it again?
So my bullet is, the board is responsible for the organization and control of the public schools in School District of Indian River County and is empowered to determine the policies necessary for the effective operation and the general improvement of the school system.
And
Your-
requires us to enforce our own school board rules and state school board rules.
There we go. Do you want it all in the same sentence or a separate bullet?
Maybe
That's what it-
I don't care.
Who's taking
Same
notes?
sentence?
I think it can be all in the same one because it's all the same thing.
Okay, so you're saying and,
And requires us to enforce our school board rules and state school board rules. That's right out of the statute 1001.42.
I think when we look at this, we all have to use this and then send in the information to Nancy so she can get it in a.
Yeah, this is hard for me to follow when I'm
Form.
hearing spoken comments
Right.
that keep changing, and frankly, that's hard for me to track.
Well, and also it needs to go by our attorney to make sure
Sure,
that we're
sure.
doing right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Right. No.
Right.
No. Okay.
Well, there wouldn't be any changes because these were creating the protocol. So there, it's not like we have a protocol that we're changing. We don't have any protocol
We don't
at
have any
all.
protocols.
So just to identify what our role is, I don't think it's wrong of us to pull from policy.
Right, but if you make a decision that rather than it saying the school board is responsible for the organization and control of public schools, that's a direct quote from your existing policy.
Right.
So if you decide to change that somehow, you're essentially going to change the policy.
Right.
That's where staff
Right.
have to get in here to start the rulemaking process.
Right.
Sorry. Dr. Moore, when you look at these bold things, what do you think of them, or do you think we need to add any, delete any? Like, we had board staff communication, we wanted to add ethical conduct, and then board orientation, but when you look at these, do you have them in front of you?
Is the rest of that,
I can give that, because that's what I read.
The samples? I have them,
And
I
what
pulled them up
Terry
from the old
added.
email. Is that what you're asking?
got
You want me
a
to
bunch of
Find
stuff.
which the email was and tell it?
yeah, under board member rules and authority, is there anything else that anybody wants to tweak or do?
I would.
Uh-oh.
I would like to address the third bullet, because I think this should be easy. It reads, "The board is responsible for the evaluation of the performance of the superintendent." I would like to remove on an annual basis, because we already know that, and add, "and the school board attorney." Because we are responsible for, for the hiring.
Do we have that somewhere in our,
The board is responsible for the evaluation of.
No. Are you adding
It's
some-
in statute.
that's what I'm asking.
It is in statute.
Suzanne, is that listed somewhere in our?
I'm looking.
It is we are responsible for the performance of the superintendent and the school board attorney, and I'll get that right here. Hold on.
Second. I think we're getting into the weeds as
Right.
far as. I think
That's not the weeds, that's our responsibility.
Oh, I know, but I mean, looking at the main areas, then coming back.
But
I
that
think we
is-
already did
that's
look at
our-
those.
That's our, part of our evaluation.
Oh, I know, but I was just looking to see if the main bolded areas were good for Dr. Moore as far as.
Well, that's it.
As I look at them in terms of
Yeah.
creating protocols in these specific areas, I think it's a safe starting place.
Safe starting place, okay.
It gives you a good structure. As I see the protocol, and as we've gone through master board training, I see it as a cheat sheet, for lack of a better way of
Right,
saying it.
right.
To help us facilitate the meetings and overall norms on what's taking place, some of the high-level stuff regarding the role of the superintendent. I mean, we understand that for the board, we necessarily get that, although you can't tweak the language. But when you start looking at, facilitating a meeting, which a lot of that is board chair,
Yes.
board meetings, meeting expectations, I think that would help us conduct a more efficient meeting, and we're all kind of going around a little bit.
Right.
That's the goal in terms of creating the protocol and going through the training. I believe that that's the intent. Let's norm on expected behavior in the midst of meetings.
I know, right? I'm sorry. I was joking with you earlier. I think that is a good way to pull us together in terms of the normed behaviors of the board.
Did you have protocols in Dade County?
We did not have protocols such as this, but it was very specific in terms of adhering to Robert's Rules of Orders. There was clearly defined policy around public comment. And there's some things that I would never want to do from Miami, and there's some things that, you know, and I'm sure Mr. Bass would tell the same story, as would Mr. Meyer or Mr. Fagan from other districts, that there are things to take and there's things just to leave where they're at. Right. So I think in overall structure, you know, we have a strong sense in place. We just need to kind of create these protocols to kind of get us aligned.
It's the April 14th, it's this. I just sent it.
So, you know, it seems to me, while we're still focused on the board, when it comes to the superintendent role and authority, I mean, I think you, Dr. Moore, should make sure that those 4 bullet points are exactly what you understand to be the role and authority. If there's something missing, suggest you add it. And if there's something that's there that needs to be reworded, that you, but getting back to the board itself, other than, I mean, we all have different writing styles, you know, and we could go through some of these, and I would, you know, write them differently, but then we're going to end up with 3 different versions, all meaning the same thing, except that we like mine better than yours, or vice versa.
Yeah, and again,
One thing, though, to that point, because I know that I'm a very picky editor, Lord knows Dr. Moore knows it. But maybe we could ask one board member, I would volunteer, to just go through it editorially for consistency of language and clarity and grammar. I'd be happy to do that, but if somebody else wants to do it, but if you're comfortable delegating it to me, you know, for example, for the evaluation of the performance of the superintendent, why don't we just say the superintendent's performance? I mean, just tightening stuff up like that.
Yeah.
right, I did the
oddly drives
template.
me up a wall,
No,
and
I'm
happy
with
to
you
do
on
it
that.
Because I'm really nuts about editing stuff. So if people want me to do it,
Yeah, that'd
once
be
we
great.
get to a point, I'm happy to just go through and tighten up the language.
Yeah, I would like to just right now agree to the bullet points.
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
want,
that's what I've
please.
been
We're-
asking.
We keep going in circles.
That's right.
Let's get
And
to
then
the
Bullet
we
meat.
tighten
points,
them up.
bullet
If we get
points,
to
bullet
what we
points.
want, and then if you guys are comfortable with it, I'll tighten them up, and then we'll pass them back out for approval.
I just wanted to go back to the supervision of the, the superintendent's performance and the school board attorney. Also, that is in one of the packets that April sent us from one of the other districts in Roman numeral, I have no idea. I missed the Roman numeral. It's under the title Evaluation of Staff Reporting to the Board. There are 3 people under there from one of the other districts. And one of those, the highlighted area says the superintendent of schools, the next one is the school board attorney, and the next one is the administrative assistant. I'm only suggesting that we, in this bullet, write, the board is responsible for the evaluation of the superintendent, the performance and evaluation of the superintendent and the school board attorney.
So let me ask you a question. In this case, we've outsourced legal.
Right.
Let's suppose that Suzanne worked for the district and worked for Dr. Moore, which is the other model. If you look in the world of corporate governance, besides the CEO, the general counsel of a corporation and the chief financial officer actually have dual reporting responsibilities in most corporate. It's to the CEO of the company, but it's also on the board, to the board, for very specific things. You know, whistleblowing, for example, there's a process to deal with, and it ultimately ends up at the board. It can be the chair of the audit committee of the board. I'm talking about the corporate world now, not this world.
Right.
So I just
Different.
wonder
In this case, though, we hire our superintendent, our attorney. So in our particular situation, Suzanne's function is dual She serves as a board attorney and the superintendent's attorney, and actually the entire
All right,
district's
but
attorney
now-
on
but
some matters.
I don't want to get into a
But
debate
that's what
here.
you're talking about. In a different world, the roles are different, but we're not in a different world. We're here in the school
Wait-
district
wait-
of
wait-
Indian
wait a
River
minute.
County.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm suggesting is if 2 years from now, the district decides to hire a full-time attorney, who's going to evaluate that attorney? Is it going to be the board or the CEO? Because that attorney, it's the chief executive officer of
It would be.
Of the
it
district.
Depends on the roles, it depends on the situation. But we're not 2 years down the road. In 2 years down the road, if that's the case, we can address it and then and fix this. These are not policy.
Can I make a comment?
Right now, I don't think that that's an issue. Right now, we're just talking about our
It is an
current.
issue when it becomes policy.
It
Go
sure
ahead.
But it's not policy right now.
Okay, but what I want to say is, it's not in our policy right now, and I'm asking for the statute that says the school boards need to do this. That's what I think we should, again, look at statute. And if we don't have it in policy, we can't put it here until we make a policy for it.
Protocols are not.
Policy.
Yes, I understand what you're saying, but protocols could very well say, we can set a protocol that says you need to greet everybody and say good morning when you walk into a meeting. That doesn't necessarily have to be in statute. Protocols could be anything that we decide.
I think what you're referring to is a little different than greeting somebody in the morning.
Well, if you want to take it out completely.
No,
Because
that's
we
not
already
what I'm
have
saying to
it.
do. What I'm asking is, and I've asked the attorney, but I haven't gotten an answer yet, is there something in statute that says what school boards have the authority to do or are required to do concerning the school board attorney? That's what we need to know.
Okay. So there's nothing that says that you're required to have a lawyer, right? There are lots of school boards that don't have a lawyer. So there's no legal requirement to have a lawyer ever. The statutes that govern school boards provide that the superintendent, 99.9% of the time, is the one who makes hiring and firing decisions, right? School boards may approve them, right? But the superintendent is the one who does the work and makes the recommendation to the school board. And there are 3 times when the school board is responsible for that. Number 1 is for the hiring and firing of a superintendent.
Right.
Number 2 is if you are going to hire a school board attorney, you're not required to, but if you're going to hire a school board attorney, the school board has the authority to make that decision itself, regardless of any kind of a recommendation from the superintendent. And number 3, there's a provision in the law that allows the school board to directly hire an auditor, it's called an internal auditor, that can report directly to the school board. So those are the 3 people that the school board, sitting as a governing body, can make the decision to hire. Separate and apart from that, there is another provision in the law that says individual school board members have the authority to hire your individual assistant. Some school boards, each school board member has
Where's
their
Mr. Fagan?
own assistant. You can't hire a family member to be that assistant, but you have the ability to hire each individual. So I'm not talking about all 5 board members. I'm talking about each individual school board member has the ability under the law to hire their own individual personal assistant. I'm pretty sure Miami-Dade does that. I think Broward does that. I mean, there are some school boards that do that sort of thing. I can tell you the vast majority of school boards don't. You have one administrative assistant, sometimes it's called the clerk of the works, whatever you want to call that individual. But that individual comes under the standard hiring and firing protocols, which come under the Office of the Superintendent.
Mr. Chair, for the
Yes,
sake of
ma'am.
time. All right, could we just go down and see if we approve these bold categories? And I've got an idea, maybe with.
Wait, we were just on something. Let's not jump all around. I'm sorry, Dr.
But you're the one who
Jones.
just said that we need to look at these areas, we're going all around.
I know, but Mrs. Barenborg and I were just on this one bullet, and if we
Okay.
go someplace else,
All right,
I
sweet, all
don't.
right, go ahead. What were you on? The state
I
staff.
think, you brought this up a couple of times, Peggy, about the major things, and I
Yeah.
think we all agreed that they were all fine at the very beginning. and adding board
Board
staff
staff, ethical, and
communications
board
and
orientation.
onboarding and orientation. I think we've already covered that.
Okay, but I've got another.
That's what I assumed
Okay,
anyway.
one
Okay?
part.
So don't worry about that part. Okay, so let's just take each area. We were just looking at the first one, board member rules and authorities, right? And Jackie asked to move the day-to-day operation down to the superintendent's role, which I see that fitting into that first bullet really well. I don't know about you, but I think it fits in there.
Yeah, it's good.
And then on the top, adding the part that we talked about, which was the part that she mentioned, and then what I read the statute, and that it should be in there. So can we all agree that that first area, board member and roles and authorities, is now okay? And I'm not saying this is set in stone, Dr. Schiff. What I'm saying is, once we get it retyped and redone, we'll come back to it again and look and make sure that it's exactly how we want it to say. But is everybody okay with what we've said so far on that part?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So what we're on is then the superintendent's role and authority. Or are we still adding the board
No.
member
No,
authority?
we're in
of-
this
We're still
evaluation.
here.
Okay, so we're talking about the evaluation. Okay, so if you look at the third bullet point, which is the one she wanted to do, and you mentioned, Dr. Schiff, getting rid of the evaluation part and just the board is responsible for the performance of the
No, no, no,
superintendent?
no, no, no. I
No?
didn't say get rid of the evaluation.
what did you
I was
say?
just tightening the language.
Right, what did you say?
I said for the evaluation of the superintendent's performance.
Okay, all right, so, and I'm fine with that. I think Jackie's now asking us to add the attorney's evaluation, is that correct?
Yes.
Which to me sounds like a separate bullet.
I don't, doesn't have to be a separate bullet. The board is responsible for the evaluation of the superintendent and the school board attorney's performance.
So
Can I make a sug-
let me ask a question. I'm not in favor of that, and I'll tell you why. We sit here and the superintendent and his team present their goals and objectives for the year. It's very clearly defined, measurement standards are understood, outcomes are expected, et cetera, et cetera. How in the world can you possibly put in place the same kind of an evaluation and measurement process for the school attorney?
We have one.
Because
They had one. This previous, at some point, the previous board, or the one just before this, had one in place. It's in my office. But it
Had
had
what?
not been.
Could that be a separate conversation? then, 'cause we're running
Absolutely.
out of
An
time?
attorney, the school board attorney's evaluation. They just never did it.
Can we shelve that conversation? Are
Yes.
you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, for the next time we come back to this?
If you could send that around, I'd
Yeah.
love
Yeah,
to see that.
That would be helpful.
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely.
I actually agree with Mr. Barefoot about it being a separate bullet point. They're distinct roles, and if we are going to amend in the future,
All right, separate bullet.
if we were to hire an in-house attorney, it's more practical to just take away a particular bullet if it becomes inappropriate.
That's fine.
Okay.
Separate bullet.
So
Okay.
we'll keep that as a pending thing, separate bullet on the top of attorney eval.
Okay. Yep. The next bullet under the board member roles and authority on the second page, it reads, "The board evaluates themselves and reviews protocols on an annual basis." Do
I
you
have
all
no
want
idea what that means.
I think we're doing it right now.
I just took them from other boards.
That's not evaluating
No,
ourselves.
but that's reviewing the protocols.
Well, I would just say that we.
And evaluates and reviews protocols on an annual basis.
Yeah.
We don't evaluate ourselves, we
Right.
evaluate
Well,
the
I
work that we
think
do.
The voters do that.
I also think we
The
can
voters
evaluate where
do
we
that.
are as a board.
I think what Dr. Jones is talking about is more of self-reflection and like, you know.
Your goals and so forth.
You know, we police ourselves, basically. There's nobody else that's
Well
going
and
to
good, but we
police
don't,
us.
we don't need it in a protocol, in my
I
opinion.
think that's another long conversation if we do that. I
Board
think
eval.
just putting that the board evaluates and reviews protocols on an annual basis is enough.
I think regular basis. Why annual?
Why don't we just say regularly?
That's fine.
Okay, regularly, got
It's
it.
like as needed.
Perfect. And then the last bullet reads, "The board has the authority to act on a duly convened meeting."
Act only in a duly
Only
convened.
in. I would remove that entire bullet and talk about that when we get to board meetings.
I disagree.
I agree, I disagree
I
also.
disagree on that one, too.
Okay?
Because I think it belongs exactly there.
Yeah, that's pretty
The
important.
board has the
Because
authority
it's
to
about our
act.
authority. Our authority only exists as a
Only, yeah.
corporate board together in a publicly noticed meeting.
Okay,
So-
can I read something that was sent to us then? Maybe you all would consider this here. It reads, maybe it's just the wording of this. It reads, "The board acts only as a body." And then there's a description here. Individual board members do not have authority. Only the board as a whole has authority. We agree that an individual board member will not take unilateral action. The board president will communicate, I guess they meant the chair. The board president will communicate the positions of the board on controversial issues. When the board members serve on various school committees, their roles shall be defined by the board as silent observer or active participant. I don't know about all of that. I just think the board acts as a body. Individual board members do not have authority, but only a board has.
So the board has the authority to act as a body only in a duly convened and noticed meeting.
The board has,
We
Read
might,
it again,
we
read it
might,
again.
however, though it's overkill, add a bullet that says, no board member has individual policy to make or state, board like, some way of wording that, but to
Speaking on
reiterate
behalf of the
that
board.
none of us have individual authority. That none of us have individual authority to,
individual board members do not take unilateral action.
that's not it. It's not that we take action, we can't take action by ourselves, but what we can do is go in public spaces and say, the board agrees that, and that may or may not be true. We represent our own opinion, not that of the board, unless it's been discussed in a
Voted
public
on.
meeting. Right.
For example, if asked in a radio interview, what did the board say about this? If it was voted on and agreed to,
Or even discussed.
answer it.
It may not have been something we voted on, it may have been a discussion, but as long as it happened in the public,
Right.
we can talk about that. But we cannot say, the board thinks we should meet on Wednesdays. When I may think we should meet on Wednesdays, but the board itself has not discussed that, I don't have that authority.
I think if you just state the board has the authority to act only as a body in a duly convened and noticed meeting, I think you're good.
Only as a body in
Yeah,
a duly
only as a
convened
body. That
meeting.
covers
Okay.
the individual speech.
All right, so it'll,
Though I think it's overkill, I would just add the no individual board member has, or no board member has individual authority. I don't know the wording right now. I realize it's overkill, but I think it bears repeating and reiterating.
okay.
I'm fine with that.
I hope somebody's writing this
I
down.
got it,
because
I
I'm
got
not.
it.
Is there anything under the superintendent's roles and authority, Dr. Moore, that you saw?
No, I have read them, I'm very comfortable.
Other than adding the day-to-day operation part
Right.
down below that?
Yep, yep, yep.
And we're going to do all the editing later, correct?
Yeah, is there anybody that had anything else on that? Can we move on
Just-
then to board
just-
chair?
Board chair, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just grammatical stuff.
Well, between Mrs. Zario and Dr. Schiff, that's going to be a challenge. So.
I'm sorry, I
Got
was
it.
reading.
I'll
What's
help
going to be
you.
a challenge?
Yeah, because the last bullet, you just need, yeah. We're both editing queens. That's what he said.
Oh.
Okay, so we're on board chair.
Is that
Maybe
day-to-day
you-
operations then?
Maybe you two guys can ride together to Tampa, and you can discuss it on the way, over and back.
No, the board attorney is going,
kidding.
no.
There are many boards that travel there together.
I know.
Many.
You go for it then.
But they don't talk about board business.
Correct.
I'll tell you what, I'll take a stab at it, and then I can go back to the meeting, and if people want to change it, we'll talk about it then. How about that?
Good.
Yeah.
All right, board
Perfect.
chair.
Just give me
I
deadlines.
think-
I work on deadlines. I need deadlines.
Wait, Miss Nancy was asking me to send her my notes, so would you mind if I just send her so she doesn't miss, and then you can do like the final editing?
You send it to her, send it to me, then it'll get back sent out to the board for the
Awesome.
next discussion.
Are you all okay
I just
with
need
that?
to know, I'll just need to know dates.
Yeah, absolutely. Although my little scribble.
We're running out of time.
Yep, board
8
chair.
minutes.
I know some of you won't like some of
Having
these.
learned that the drive was 2.5 hours and not 3.5 hours, I'm good. If we need to go an
There's
extra
one-
15 minutes.
There's
okay.
one thing under board chair.
Go ahead, Terry, yeah.
But I'm thinking it fits better under public participation, but I just want to say it here
Yeah.
to all of you and say, where does this fit? But the chair reminds the public to direct all comments to the chair.
Yes,
And
that's what I-
monitors.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's what I put in the email.
Let me re-say it.
I know.
Okay,
Ooh,
hold on.
ooh, I get excited now.
All right, hold on.
This
The
template.
chair reminds and monitors the public to direct all comments to the chair, the superintendent, or board as a whole. Does that go there, or does that go under the role of the board chairperson?
That goes under the role of the board
Board
chairperson.
chairperson, yeah.
So,
I agree
That's
with
on
that.
you.
so I think that needs to be added then to,
Directs the public to,
the board chair reminds and monitors the public to direct all comments to the chair, superintendent, or board as a whole.
to chair or.
I would
Wait,
actually.
say that again,
uh,
reminds
say
and monitors.
Direct comments through the chair, as we do in meetings. It's not even to the board as a whole.
Right.
I would leave
I
that
believe
out.
that's though in our policy somewhere, it says board as a whole. Is that, where am I getting that from?
Comments are directed to the board through the chair.
Can I ask this, the attorney?
I sent it in an email.
Yeah, where did I read that?
From
Or is
my
the board as a
email.
whole? No, I think when we had onboarding, I think that was,
Board as a whole.
I'm going
As a
back to
body,
either
you can say
training
as a
at
body.
FSBA or
Yeah.
when we first came on, that was stated that people are asked to do that, and maybe that should be on the form. That's why I asked for the
When we
form.
get there.
Okay, good.
Terry, while Suzanne is looking it up, what did you say? You said
I said
reminds
that
and
the chair
monitors.
reminds and monitors the public to direct all comments to the chair, the superintendent, or board as a whole. In other words, remind them at the beginning or have it on here, and then as they're speaking, when they call out a board member, stop it immediately and say, I need to remind you of this policy. It's on your printed sheet that you agreed to.
good.
Okay.
Because I think that that is one of our policies, and it's been
It is.
not
It
followed.
hasn't been followed for a while.
Well, the specific, that the last meeting, one of the speakers,
Yeah.
focused
But
on
it's-
one board member, and it was the last statement that speaker made. It's sort of hard to shut them off
But you-
after the fact.
You
But-
can say something after that person speaks that is board policy that we do not call board
And
members
Mr.
out.
Barefoot, that's been done for years, that they haven't
Yeah, it
been
has.
calling them on it, so.
And I think it's the chairman's responsibility.
Right.
That's all.
All right,
You're the one
board
with the gavel.
meetings.
The second bullet and the third, Miss Suzanne has an answer.
Okay.
Your current board policy says that all statements shall be directed to the presiding officer.
Okay,
So then just say to the chair then.
Okay.
okay,
I,
Super or board as a whole.
yep.
the second bullet and the third bullet, I am not comfortable with either one of those. I would like to remove both of those
Where are we now?
under chair.
Chairperson, liaison to the superintendent, primary spokesperson. Yeah, that's, again, I just grabbed them all and put them
Yeah,
in there.
that's fine. I'm
But
not.
that's a good topic of discussion. How do you feel about that, Dr. Moore, that the,
Yeah, that's not what we're currently doing.
Correct.
That's not how I functioned in my previous district. and
Yeah.
That's not how
Yeah.
I function here. So everyone's briefed the same, and informed the same. And the only, in terms of the scheduling of meetings and things like that, I think that's.
Your mic.
I am so sorry. In terms of meetings, that's typically, I work through Nancy and the chair to schedule meetings. But
Right.
outside of informing or taking opinions, it's always, equally distributed.
so take out the primary spokesman, and who else wants to take out the liaison to the
Well, hang
superintendent?
on, I'm sorry, hang on for 1 second.
You have a board policy on that,
Yes,
We have a board policy on what?
on the chair.
on the chair as the spokesperson for the
Yep.
school board.
What does it say?
It's 0149.
I remember reading that.
Point 1. It's entitled Public Expressions of Members, and it says the school board chairman shall function as the official spokesperson for the board unless that responsibility is delegated to another board member by the chairman.
So we're not to
But
talk.
that says, but that's different than this. That says as a spokesperson for the public, not for the superintendent.
Doesn't say
This
superintendent.
doesn't say superintendent, it
Doesn't
says
say superintendent.
the official spokesperson for the board.
Right. But that's just not the first bullet. That first bullet says liaison to the superintendent.
I'm talking about the third bullet point.
Oh.
We already got rid of the first two, didn't we?
Well,
The first one's fine.
Can I raise something about that?
It goes on to say that individual board members may also, of course, speak publicly. I mean, you're not prohibited from speaking, but when you're talking about for the board.
I would suggest that this is a bigger issue. When board members can, of course, speak to the media, that's part of our job, that's part of our role. We can say what we want. What is important is that we clarify that we are not speaking for the board unless we are repeating something that has been stated in a public meeting that can go back and be fact-checked. I don't know how we word that, but the chair, the issue of primary spokesperson versus the ability to speak with the media and on what and with what caveats, I think is a bigger issue.
that's why I think we should just remove it.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with removing it. I think we clarify it.
Well, then there ought to be some comment under board member roles, where you add something that relates to the media, much like it is here.
I agree.
Sure.
So we add a
Makes
bullet point
sense.
to the top.
I'd add a bullet point to the top, whatever the wording is, but we've been discussing it, it should be reflective of that when you speak to the media, you speak for yourself, not on behalf of the board.
Oh,
However, you may, again, I don't have the language right now, but repeat or reiterated a discussion or an action that's been taken in a public, publicly.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. Terry and I alternate Wednesdays with Bob Seuss. I get usually the Wednesday after a board meeting, and
Oh, I get it the Wednesday after a board meeting sometimes.
Did you?
Oh, yeah.
But, you try and reiterate what was discussed at the
Right.
board, what the board either is discussing or ruled
Right.
on, passed, whatever it is, approved.
But we all get calls from media people to ask us to comment on assorted things. Some of us decline to comment on certain things, some of us don't. In that, it needs to be clear when we're speaking for ourselves and when we are referencing something that happened in a public meeting that was discussed among the board corporate.
How about this? I wrote down something. So a bullet point added to the top, board members speak in the public as individuals, not as spokespersons for the board.
Say that again?
Yeah, that's fine.
Board members speak in the public as individuals, not as a spokesperson for the board.
That's fine.
Okay.
It's good.
Hold on, let me write that down. Let me write that, please. Board members speak in the public.
In the public as an individual, not as a spokesperson for the board.
Okay, up to board meetings.
Well, back down to chair. Did that first bullet point get thrown out, or are we
No,
keeping that?
I think that's important, that
I do
it's
too.
a distinction without a difference. Just because
Sure.
you're chair, you still only have
good.
one vote.
Okay. And then the second bullet point, we said we're taking that out.
Taking that out and the third one out, and instead we're adding the bullet
Directs the public.
to
Yeah.
what you just said.
Okay.
All right, the
Board
fourth
meetings.
bullet. The chair works with the superintendent on board agendas. We said we agree on that.
Yes.
Should we be clear as to what we mentioned at the last one, when it becomes a board agenda at the meeting, or do you guys just want to leave it general?
I'm fine.
It's
with
not a
that.
board
Just leave it.
chairperson issue, it's a board member role issue.
Right. I'm
I'm
fine
Just
with
leave
that.
it as it, okay.
Yeah.
The next bullet, the chair runs, oh, sorry.
That could be under board meetings.
To also clarify, that, well, the chair works with the superintendent on board agendas. Board members have
That's what I'm.
the option or possibility to add items to the agenda through the superintendent or the chair. But that should be clarified. We can contribute to the agenda, we just do it through the superintendent or the board chair. Typically the superintendent, because we can't talk to the board chair.
And I think we have policy
There
that
is
states that
policy.
Yeah,
it should
your
go through
your
the
policy says to the
superintendent.
superintendent 7 days before the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And he, yeah. there have been times in the past where a superintendent could refuse that opportunity to a board member. It's not true with this superintendent, but it has happened in the past. So codifying it makes sense to me.
Okay. Just, that last bullet, the vice chair fills his duties when the chair is unavailable?
Wait, we're at the one before.
Okay.
Let's go to the one before.
Okay.
The chair runs the meeting according to Robert's rules, and the school board attorney is responsible for monitoring usage during the meetings.
Monitoring usage of what?
Robert's rules. Robert's rules. You get that job, not me.
Honoring phone usage.
So I agree this should be moved to meetings, but I think the wording definitely needs to change.
Monitoring usage.
I would like it to read, the chair runs the meeting. Well, it is the chair's responsibility, though.
It is.
The chair runs the meeting according to Robert's rules, and it should say Robert's rules
The school
of
board attorney is a
order.
parliamentarian.
With support from the
and-
school board attorney.
I would,
Serving as parliamentarian.
and I would say the school board attorney is the parliamentarian.
That's
That's
your
all I would say.
current board policy say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All righty.
okay.
Board meeting.
The last bullet, though, we're at the last bullet. The vice chair fills the chair's duties when the chair is unavailable. So I would change the wording there as well, but I'm good with leaving that there.
What do you want to change that to?
The vice chair,
Let's work on that later.
yeah,
We can
the
fix
vice
the language.
chair,
Let's just agree in principle and figure the language.
Well, I do want to make a comment about that, though.
Go
because
ahead.
It's going to come up, June 22nd.
Yes, Madam Vice Chair, what is your comment?
22nd, it's coming up.
go for it.
And that's going to be a fun meeting. So, I learned something I did not know, having been on this board for a couple of years now, that if the chair's not available to run the meeting and the vice chair is not available to run the meeting, the meeting cannot exist. You
No,
all know that?
No.
Okay.
It
So
can yeah.
why was I told that then?
I don't know.
Okay.
Who told
So
you?
who runs the meeting if two of us can't be here?
A chairman,
Designee.
a chairman pro tem is elected by the
Okay,
the
because
board
there's still
members.
3 people, that's what I'm saying.
Right, there's
Okay.
still, as long as there is a quorum physically present in the location of the meeting can be held. If neither the chair nor vice chair are available, under Robert's rules, the remaining 3 members elect a chair pro tem.
Good, because
Well-
that's why on the next one, board meetings, I wanted to add something about a quorum in there.
But
Because
here,
I
but
think
here,
that's
just to that point, the budget. We got into this discussion with Mr. Fagan, the 2 budget meetings in July,
Okay.
that one of the 2 of us have to be there.
That's what we were told.
And
so
and
I'm not
Mr.
gonna-
Fagan sent me a email after our discussion, maybe not yesterday, but last week, that yes, I was right, that one of the 2 elected officers of the board had to physically be present.
And I'm happy to follow up with Mr. Fagan. I don't know what he's referring to.
Nancy, you told that to me, so are you getting that, where were you getting that directive? Okay. I just, that's why I'm bringing this up, because I never knew that, and then I was
Urban
told
legend.
that. So I was like, wait a minute, so, okay, so we need to put something then in the next bullet point about board meetings. Are we done with the board chair then?
Yes.
Well, are we here until 12?
Which is going to be
12.
pretty soon.
If we stop here, it would be good, so we don't add another board meetings. I mean, we don't begin another topic of discussion, if you all, because
I thought you
have
said
to
that
drive.
it's not as long a meeting and that you had time.
No,
I
that-
didn't
She
mean to
did,
go
not
all
me.
day.
I have stuff to do.
I-
She said it, not me.
I think we called a meeting at 12:15.
Yes.
Okay,
So we have,
9 minutes.
all right, go board meetings.
Go
I kept
board.
through those for 9 minutes.
All right, board meetings. Different call. That's really saying the agenda.
I think on the
chair,
first,
superintendent, and
the
board
first
chair.
bullet.
Yep.
We just add in there, it says the responsibility of setting the agenda. Oh, no, it's already on the second end. Yeah, we're fine.
Agenda items submitted by
not
board members must be,
shared.
so maybe this is where we add what we
Yes.
said before. Agenda items submitted by board members must be submitted to the superintendent within the appropriate timeline. That's,
Yep.
and that would cover what the thing that we
Okay.
were going to add before. What,
Yep.
Suzanne has made a face.
I just, and probably not my place, but on the first bullet point under board meetings, this says the setting of the agenda is shared by the superintendent and board
Yeah.
chair. It is not a shared
That's true.
responsibility. The superintendent sets the agenda.
Right.
Once it is published, then the presiding officer
Okay. I remember
has
that.
the authority to approve changes to the agenda, but, I mean, I don't want it to be misrepresented
Okay.
that somehow the chairman of the school board has authority to set the
So
meeting
responsibility
agenda.
is set by the superintendent. That's just,
I mean, they certainly would coordinate about
Sure.
items, but it's not
Well,
a shared responsibility.
Maybe exactly
So
what you
remove
just said,
that
break
first
it into
bullet.
2 bullet points.
that came
The
from New
meeting is
York.
set by the superintendent. Next bullet point, once published, whatever you just said. What she said.
Well, you coordinate if, the superintendent may decide to pull something from the agenda before the meeting
Right.
starts.
Which he does after he has conversations with
Yeah.
some of us.
Yeah,
You've done that recently with me a couple of times.
you've done it.
Okay. So on the second bullet point, if we just add after submitted to the superintendent, then we're
Right.
fine.
No, isn't it after it's published? After it's published, however it also becomes the wrong word property
It
of
says within the
chair.
appropriate timeline, so if we keep it like that, we're
yeah.
fine.
Yep.
That's good.
Well, Dr. Schiff, her,
That's a
Talking about two
separate
different
bullet,
she
I think
said
above that.
submitted to the superintendent within the required timeline.
Yeah, whatever.
Which
Appropriate.
Same
which is
difference.
7 days, right?
Correct.
It's 7 days.
Once it's called to order or once it's published?
Call to order.
Called to order, okay.
And the third bullet,
Sorry. That brings up what came up in our last meeting, which is about adding items that haven't been duly noticed and processed.
right.
So if we're going to make a policy about that, I think now's the time.
Is this a policy?
This isn't a policy.
I mean, a protocol, whatever, yeah.
There's a difference
You
between
have a
policy and
policy on that.
Yeah,
The
there's a
issue
whole-
is that it has come up on the appropriateness of so doing, and we need to make decisions about putting that into either policy,
Right.
protocol, or both.
I had asked Suzanne about that because looking at who owns the agenda and then where we go from there, and if an action item can be held, and is it good cause, and the chair can do that. I want to make sure, if that ever happens again, there is a separate vote for an extra action item versus the orders of the day. I want to be very clear. If I'm voting against orders of the day, it's because an extra action item was brought up and our public was not duly notified. So whenever that comes up again, I'm going to be asking for a separate vote. And I can do that.
Can I make a comment here? When we went to FSBA training, basically, they stated to us, because emergency things do happen, I believe it was emergency thing
Yeah,
in the mind eye
absolutely.
of a board member, that the agenda is the superintendent's
Right.
until it is at the beginning of the meeting, and then when we call for the vote of the items of the day, that's when any board member can add an item or delete, or ask for an item to be removed.
Move, yeah.
Or move an item.
Right.
That is our prerogative, and you're asking to limit that. And I don't think I think that's setting a bad precedent.
Well, I think anything that comes up that's not an emergency or good cause is setting a bad precedent.
But I
without our
also think-
constituents knowing. Now, I'm talking about emergencies. They can be added at any time, but
But I
I
also,
think we're running a real tight ship on that one. If we're just going to add action items that the superintendent was not made aware of, that the district was not made aware of, I just think we're not being fair to our constituents, knowing that we're going to take a vote on something.
but we
unless
can
it's an
also,
emergency.
but we can also vote it down.
Correct, but we didn't have a vote on that last time. It was
Yes,
just
we did.
added.
That's the point.
Yes, we
No,
did.
Orders of the day, correct.
Yes, we did.
Orders of the day, but
But what
was
Dr.
orders of
Jones
the
is
day.
saying is a separate vote on adding action items that were not published
Right.
and noticed. in the agenda.
But if you don't add it to the orders of the day, where would you add it?
It could be a separate vote, right, Mr. Gresta?
I think you could do it several ways. The discussion that I had with Dr. Jones was to bifurcate the vote on orders of the day. In the event a board member wishes to add an action item, hypothetically, if our scenario is a board member wishes to add an action item that's not previously been on the agenda, they can certainly make that motion to do so, but the adoption of the orders of the day would be taken separate from, I would like to add to action this agenda item. Motion, second, vote. I would like to add this to board member discussion. Action, second, vote. Now that we have all of that decided, now we adopt the orders of the day. As amended, here's what we're adopting as our orders of the day.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. That's what I was saying. Yeah, as long as.
It just requires a couple more steps for the chairman to keep on top of those things.
If we go with that, do we have to change policy? Because that's not anything that we're familiar with as of now.
Currently, your policy allows board members to add items to the agenda. So it doesn't require a change to that policy. It requires some sort of agreement as far as the process at the board meeting of rather than taking, your practice in the past has been orders of the day is one big motion. As opposed to if you wish to do that, you will bifurcate each of the pieces of your orders. I want to move all of this stuff from consent to action. I want to add this to discussion. I want to add this to action. I want to add something somewhere else. Those individual asks by board members that have not previously been on your agenda could be taken as individual motions and decisions.
Yeah, I have concerns about that. And again, I don't know if this is the right time to discuss it because we're over our 12:09 time limit.
We got 1 minute.
1 minute, we have
12:15, I have one more
20
minute.
seconds.
But my concern is that our meetings, and I think Terry has a point, our meetings are for board purpose, to complete the work of the board, to conduct the work of the board, to get work of the board done. If something comes up, I don't think anybody has not had an opportunity to add something to the agenda that the superintendent is not previously aware of. But if something does happen, and it's not an emergency, it's an urgency, or there's a change, things happen all the time, it will limit the work of the board. Because someone may say, well, it wasn't on there before, vote down. But then you're not giving respect to the board members who need to present it so that you all could hear the sides or discuss it or whatever it is.
Can I make another point to that? And this was part of the reason why I was okay with that one, is because part of our job is to listen to citizen input. And if a citizen makes a suggestion that you didn't think of and you thought, all right, well, they made a good point, and you want to now bring that as an action item, that's the time to do it.
Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, I don't think that we should do that.
I will be asking for a separate vote if we have anything like that. And again, that's up to the board, the majority of the board, but an action item added and a vote taken on something, our constituents and our community should know about it. And good cause, and I've looked up many definitions of good cause and legal terms and so forth. I certainly understand if the superintendent brings an emergency, and that's the one person who should be bringing the emergency, then we listen to him and do something like that, and the item is added. But you're right, we need to listen to everyone.
And I'm going to bring up a specific one. The way it was delivered was interesting, but I think there was a good point of, isn't it about time for us to go back to the dais? And that was the one, I think, that came up as the emergency last second and added to the agenda. There were two, but that was one that I thought, well, yeah, we haven't really talked about that part. And that was a good point. So I have no problem with when the citizen brings up something that I go, oh, that hasn't really been on our radar recently. Good point. I'm okay with a board member saying, you know what, let's address it now.
make
And
a
we
you
take
can
a
either
vote on it.
You can either vote it down or
That's
vote it up.
correct.
Hammer
But here's the thing, is that if at the beginning of the meeting you want to add it, if it's not voted through, you won't have that discussion.
Right.
And that's
I just-
unfair.
It's a precedent that we need to really
I'm
watch, and
about
it's
to
good cause.
recess the meeting.
If you get the second.
Okay, but we need to know our, we don't want to come back to this. What's our assignment for this? To
I'm
get it done?
going to send to Nancy what we discussed here with my scribble clear for the minutes, and then I think Nancy's going to send it to Mara for editing, who will then send it to, I'll CC you, of course.
If, after that step, if Dr. Schiff can send it back to me, I'll work with Suzanne to make sure it's aligned to policy.
Right.
Good idea.
We'll stamp draft on it.
Right.
And then I'll put this as an item for our next workshop.
get these
This
out.
may be tedious and like laborious work, but the
Yeah.
fact that this has not been created from boards of past hundreds of years, I mean, this is very, very meaningful work that it's going to stabilize the professionalism, the structure, and how the board operates. So,
May I give a homework assignment?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
To help facilitate this a little bit more, could everybody look at this form?
I've already made a couple of
Yeah,
suggestions to Nancy about this before.
There you go.
It
And
ended up being a full page instead of a half a page.
whatever it is, I just think that we need to be very clear on how we want the public to be able to
Right.
be invited to speak and
Include a-
also help with our meetings.
Including a civility clause in there.
Well, I think that's also, that's actually going to be its whole own.
I think that's a separate.
Meeting reserved.